Gary, are you making me like I can share? Yes.
The presenter.
Presenter.
Hang on 1 second.
Scott, did you know you're dialed in twice?
Yeah, he's on his phone and his computer, I think.
Yeah, I'm sitting at a Discount Tire, guys. So
Discount tire. Okay.
I got I had a nail in my tire this morning, so I've got to deal with it.
That
You're not a
sucks.
co-host. Joe, you're the co-host, so you should be able to share your screen.
Okay, just let me know when you want to get started. I still see some people coming in.
I just started recording.
We're recording.
Right.
It's 8 o'clock. Let's get started and it's Saturday. Let's give everybody their time back. So
Yeah.
people can join when they join.
Okay. So if I minimize this, okay, good. All right. I just wanted to get that picture off the screen. All right.
Can you
So,
expand your file a little bit, Joe, for us? Just
say it again.
Can you expand your Excel sheet a little bit to make it a little bit bigger?
Not much.
Yeah, but whatever you can do would help.
Yeah, if I do it too much, I lose some of the.
That's good. I mean, that's not good. A little bit bigger.
If I make it any bigger, I'm gonna lose this area over here.
I understand. That's better right there than it was. So thank you.
Let me see if the other pages are. I got to do the other pages as well. So.
Let me see it.
All right. Okay, that's about as good as I can do it. Is that all right for everybody?
Right.
Yeah. How's that?
Yes, no?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're good.
You notice.
Okay. All right, so 2025 budget. This format, this worksheet should be familiar to most of you. If not, I'll do a brief how and why here. So column C is the 2024 budget. What you're seeing now is the revenues. As we move down through the sheet, you'll see the expenses. There's a lot more of them than there are revenues. These middle three columns, D, E, and F, represent 2024 actuals. Year to date, column D is year to date through the end of October. And then what we estimate will be either revenue realized or expenses paid for November and December. And then column F is the estimated total. And we do this so it gives us a picture of how we performed against the budget in 2024, which provides us with some good information, a sense of where we need to be in 2025. And the 2025 budget is in column G. And then column H is just notes and mind ticklers and things like that for doing the budget. This has been in the works now for about 6 weeks or so, shortly after the annual meeting. Put this together and been getting input from board members, from our operations people, mostly from Bobby and Jessica, from Elisa. And so this is where we stand right now. So I'll start doing this and we'll just go line by line. Account 400 is assessments billed to owners. The 2024 budget, you can see the figure right there. We're going to be over budget on that if you look at the comparison of these two cells. And the reason for that is, I'll open this note, is because we added unplanned assessments to owners for the sewer project at the lodge, the door lock project, which is ongoing right now, and the smoke detectors, which is also ongoing right now. somebody may ask, why, what about the roofs? We got assessed for the roofs. That's the issue. The roofs are being handled in a separate accounting. And the reason for that is it covers 3 fiscal years. We started the roof project in 2023. It continued in 2024, and it will continue again in 2025 until it's finished. So to try to figure that in would have been very messy. So we're handling that separately. So here you can see the estimated total for 2024 for revenues, assessments, that is. And then I just plugged in the same amount for 2025. Don't ask me why that's a few dollars difference, but it makes no difference. This is just a plug difference, a plug number in here now, so that if we left the assessments exactly where they were, no change for 2025, then we'd have, we'd know where we stand with everything else being considered. And any board members who want to interrupt me at any time with questions, just go ahead and do it. Account 404 is maintenance revenue billed to owners and third parties. This gets into a discussion we've been having with BHP briefly. We're planning with BHP to not have work done for owners that BHP does for owners inside their units run through Taco anymore. It'll be direct billed from BHP. So we will have no revenue. This line will just go away. It'll clean up our accounting and our cash flow a lot better. BHP is on board with this. Stacy's been working with them. And so that's where that is. 408 owner storage unit rental, pretty much right on budget. So we'll budget pretty close to where we finished for 2024. Commercial space rental. This is the hairdresser and Sotheby's for the most part. I'd like to get some input, I think, maybe from you, Stacy. I'm not sure. I was talking to Elisa last night. Apparently, the new hairdresser is looking for a little relief during the months when she basically has nobody here, and she doesn't want to have to pay rent when she doesn't have any business. Has there been any discussion on that, or have we gotten anywhere with that?
This is the first I've heard of it.
Oh, okay. Elisa, when I talked to Elisa last night, she thought maybe you had.
Yeah, she told me she contacted you but hadn't gotten a response, so she must have the wrong number.
Yeah, no one contacted me. If she called me by phone, she didn't leave a voicemail. And I don't know. I mean, the lease is $250 a month, $500 a quarter.
$750 a quarter. $750
$750 a quarter. Oh, okay. Sorry, yes.
I mean, we don't need to. I mean, this is the workshop. We've got a whole nother week to ferret this all out. But I just wanted to bring it up because it did come up in conversations with Elisa over the last several weeks, and
yeah, we can talk about that this week, but first I've heard about it.
Okay, I'm gonna highlight this with
But how long is her lease? Her current lease, when is it up?
I don't know.
January, I believe.
Yeah.
So then we'd have to work a new lease with those terms in it then if we were gonna give her some relief on that.
Yeah. I tend to think $250 a month is a very reasonable rate, but we can all talk about that.
Gary, do I need to be the one to admit Cheryl? Oh, so you already did.
I just did it.
Okay. All right. So more to come on that one. Service and collection fees. This is interest and late fees on past due assessments. We've collected quite a bit of that over the last few months, mostly because we've gotten into a new, per Kiowa, we've gotten into a new collections procedure. And frankly, it was a lot of work getting it set up. Stacy had a lot to do with it. Elisa did a heck of a lot of work. And so it has produced a lot of collections. And when we collect past due amounts from owners, we of course get those late fees and interest charges. So
That's awesome. Thank you, Elisa. Thanks, Stacy, for getting that in place.
transfer fees, this is based solely on unit sales. I think it's $400. Is it still $400 per closing, Elisa?
Yeah.
Yeah. So each closing, an administrative charge of $400 is charged at closing. But I think everybody knows that the market has softened up considerably, and we don't have near as many sales this year on average as we have in past years. So the collections have been lower. And so we'll be budgeting for less next year. So if anybody's wondering what the significance of these highlights is, like light blue and yellow, yellow is something I think needs to be discussed. It's not finalized. It needs further discussion. Light blue is where I just plugged in a number without any input from anybody else. Any other numbers like that are unhighlighted, those numbers have come from discussion with people supporting the budget process. Okay, so that's transfer fees. Laundry machine revenue, pretty straightforward. No, I don't think we need to talk too much about that. Vending machines, pretty much the same thing. Miscellaneous income, I think this in the past, this was the only thing I can recall that was in there was if we sold any monogrammed merchandise, and I think that's trickled to almost to a stop. So I'm in favor of, for $500, I'm in favor of taking this line out and just not even having it in there. It's just an extra line in the budget. We can talk about that, but that's my opinion. This year we had the sale of Unit 110. We hoped to get 175,000 net revenue out of that. We didn't. The market softened up. We had a hard time getting it sold. We finally sold it to the owner of the unit next door, who I think is renting it now, but plans to turn it into a 2-unit combo at some point. We sold it for 165,000 and we netted out 156,000 and change. So there's that. We got that revenue this year. We won't get similar revenue next year. So that's going to make budgeting a little bit tougher. We don't have that lump of money coming in.
Can I ask a question, Joe? Didn't we have a second unit we were going to put up, or we're not putting that up?
Yeah, Unit 114. That's rented by Race. I can't remember Race's last name. He's the graveyard shift guy on the front desk. And we're going to talk a little bit more later about the closing of the front desk and some of the implications for that in the budget. But the main, we have to, until we get our fire safety system fully implemented, we have to have somebody monitoring the alarm panel 24/7. And Race is the guy that does that in the wee hours of the morning. And so,
Okay, yeah, I just knew that there was another one. I couldn't remember what we were doing, but we get income from him for rent, so that's just another line item, right?
yeah, that's covered. Yeah, we don't, that revenue isn't shown here because we made the decision to put all of that revenue directly into reserves. So when I get to the reserves page, you'll see that.
Thank you.
Yep. All right. So I'd like a little input on this one. This is the what is it? It's $30 a night, right? Correct, Elisa? The resort fee, the Glacier Resort fee? Elisa, is she there?
She on mute, maybe?
Sorry, yes.
Yeah, so it's $30 a night and we get $2 out of it. And who knows what Glacier does in January? We may get $1.75 next year. I don't know. But regardless, it appears like we budgeted 24,000 for 2024, but we've collected, or we will have collected 43,000 and change. So there's got to have been a whole lot more rentals than we thought there was going to be. Anybody, Scott, you got a ear to the tracks on that? I mean, does that sound right?
No, I'm here. I haven't heard anything from Heather about there being an increase. I mean, I guess it's just good news if we're getting more revenue out of it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
From
I'm actually
Block?
surprised by that number, to be honest with you.
I mean, I
Joe?
tossed this 35,000 number in there, trying to be conservative. But if it's realistic that we can continue to realize this kind of rental revenue, remember this 35,000 is just multiplying $2 times the number of room nights. So I mean, what is that? That's 17,000 room nights. Does that?
Is there a timing difference in that revenue number, Joe? Like, are
I'm
we in a-
sorry. What was that?
Is there a timing difference with what you're showing? Are we in a position where we've collected funds that we haven't remitted to Glacier, so the revenue's not quite as high as it looks right now?
That's always the case when we're looking at the month-to-month financial reports that are reported on. But this is a projection. This right here is a projection of what will happen as of year end 2024. So
Can I make a comment, Joe?
yeah,
Going back to your original question, you had asked about if there was an increase of renters. I can tell you from the lock project that I'm seeing a lot of these units that have turned in 2024, that owners that put deadbolts on, they're being asked now if I can put on the Yale lock because they're going to turn them into rentals. So I do see from the lock perspective more rentals coming into our midst there.
and we know that's a trend. We know that a lot of the new owners, a lot of the new property transfers, new owners coming in, a much bigger percentage of them are considering rental rather than just second home, and keeping it to themselves like some of us do. So yeah,
Right.
I guess
But
I can see
being
that.
I think being conservative on that is maybe a good idea. We're gonna have a hard time determining who's telling us they have renters and who's just giving their renters the codes.
That's
I
true too.
think Glacier will be a help with that. If they try to use the pool, they'll say, hey, these folks aren't on our list, and we'll catch some of them.
So do you think that's a downside of the lock project, is that it'll make it a lot easier for people to game the system?
A bit of a downside, I guess.
Yeah.
And
Well-
hopefully the property managers, Joe, because just about all of these people are working with their property managers that are reaching out to Gary and I, Heather and the other person from like Emily. We've got projects from them, so hopefully they're being truthful in their rentals, and then we're getting that rental revenue from them. It would only be owners who are not using a property manager that I think would squeak by, and like Elisa said, they go to Glacier to try and use the pool, and they're not going to be able to.
Right.
Yeah, we
Well-
might want to consider having a rules and regs discussion on a fine for that sort of activity, because it is going to be a new dynamic that we haven't had to deal with in the past.
Well, that could be something that's on our radar, Scott, for the revision of those, for the updating of those policies, those rental policies. Okay. All right.
I mean, that could be a fine there, Scott, but then we could also just bill them for the lost revenue.
Yeah, but the reason I like the fine is because it would bill them for the revenue anyway. We'll fine them for additional money if they're gonna try to game the system.
That's
Okay.
a good idea.
Yep.
Okay.
We've had our fair share of guys that have tried to game the system in the past, so we
Oh,
know what
yeah.
happened.
Oh, yeah, we've had a lot of them. Okay, so good discussion there. Excuse me. So like I said, sorry, items in blue that are highlighted in blue, like this one, are where I just dumped a number in there just without any input. So now you're all on in on this discussion. Do you think we go closer to what we realized last year, or do we get more conservative?
I like that number.
Yeah, I'd say more conservative. We don't have a crystal ball there.
It's nice to have positive problems if we do.
Yeah, it'd be nice to be surprised happily at the end of next year, seeing that we had more revenue.
Yeah, and that happens. I mean, you know, look at the service and collection fees. That's 6,000 over budget. So it happens. We get surprised sometimes, happily. All right.
So
I'm
I'll
good.
reach to Heather. I will tell you in my discussions with Heather, I'm surprised that we're up on this number because my rentals have been down and she says she gets a lot of just last second stuff. There's
Yeah.
not a whole lot of planners, that kind of thing that are like we've had in the past. So I'll ping Heather this week just so we can get a feel from her.
Yeah. Okay. All right. We'll leave that the way it is. Unless Scott, if you discuss with Heather and you come up with some different information, then we can adjust. Admin fees assessed to rental units. This is $60 a month is charged to every rental unit, no matter whether it's long-term or short-term. That came in a little under budget. I guess I'd like to verify at this point that we are at about 125 total units, short and long-term. Can anybody confirm that or check into it and find out?
I can send an email to the front desk and have him count them.
Yeah. Okay.
Are we capturing everybody? Are we charging that fee for everybody who's renting?
Everybody that we
know of. Yes.
that we know of. Yeah.
Is that short and long term?
For what it's worth, I think the number's higher. I think it's about 140,000.
I didn't hear that comment.
I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to comment because I'm not on the board, but I think the number is closer to 145, Joe.
Is it? Can you confirm that? Can somebody confirm that?
I'm asking.
You know, Gary, you've gotten me numbers. I've asked a couple and it is more than 125, the numbers you've given me in the past.
Yeah.
So, hey, real quick, and newbie question here, but it seems like there's a lot of hoping and trusting that we got going on rather than having a policy of checking and making sure that, I mean, we're getting our fair share of this thing and nobody's skipping out on us, if you will. I mean, intentionally or unintentionally, but it seems like if we can get get something rock solid, like I said, I have no idea the answer, but this hope thing has kind of got me questioning a little.
I can assure you, Gary kind of pays attention to anomalies with people who,
Beautiful.
were getting shipped in the past.
That's all I
and that
needed to
kind of
hear.
thing. But you can't solve for all cheaters, man.
Yeah. And the front
right.
desk sees people, hey, this guy has a lot of friend guests coming in. Let's look into this.
All right. Well, then as long as Gary and we'll arm him, I'm good with that.
All right. Well, seems like this is the one line there, item that we can squeeze a little more dollars out of it as soon as we find out what that total rental units number is. So when somebody, Elisa, when you get a response back from that, just let me know and we'll skip back to this and we'll update it. Okay, so moving on to expenses. So administrative expenses, 501 insurance, everybody knows we finalized our insurance with USI. And we're saving about $200,000 in the annual premium and getting quite a bit better coverage, in my opinion. So there's that. Accounting, tax preparation. Our tax filing has been delayed because our audit isn't complete yet. Lisa, do we have any idea when Frederick Zink is going to finish the audit?
No,
Did I hear a no?
that's a no.
I mean, it's like, come on, how long does it take to finish audit? Okay. Anyway, when we do get the taxes filed, I think that's what Tommy Meadows has been charging us, is about 2,200, right? 2,000, 2,200.
Yeah.
Okay. Assessment fees uncollectible. This is when we write off amounts that owners didn't pay, and we just, for one reason or another, decide that we're never going to get the money. This $1,114 was the result of an owner we went after, and then found out from legal that the debt was so old that it was past statute of limitations and we couldn't collect it anyway. So we wrote that one off. We'll keep that at 5,000. We typically have none of this because even though we do have some owners who are delinquent on an ongoing basis, we eventually get paid. It's very rare that we don't get anything. A unit is sold finally, and we get our money. We just had one of those recently. A unit got sold where the owner had been delinquent for quite a long time, and we got our money for it. So we generally don't need to use this, but the accountants like to see it in there. Legal fees and consulting, we're quite a bit over budget. I don't have the notes with me right in front of me, but I've gone over this in board meetings. We've had quite a bit of legal fees, unexpected legal fees. A lot of it had to do with the new Kiowa laws on collections. We had to work with legal on that to get that all put in place properly. We are looking at a potential insurance litigation that might result in at least additional upfront legal fees, but if we prevail on it, we'll get those back. But so I doubled up on the budget from last year. From this year, we thought we only budgeted 6,000 because we thought we were in clean water on that, but that situation changed, so we got this at 12,000. If anybody has any comments or other thinking on that, let me know. Okay, don't hear anything. Director's expense. This will be the second year running that directors get no compensation, no monetary compensation, no travel reimbursements, no stipends.
Joe, can I comment there?
Go ahead.
So, and I think 0 needs to be the number, but I just would like to note that based on my 2 and a little bit more years of being on the board, we're almost more of a managing board than we are a directive board, and we spend a phenomenal amount of time. And I know, speaking for myself and others, I also incur expenses. I think this will be my 4th trip this year here, and it's on my nickel. It would seem to me that there may be an in-kind way of helping with boards compensation. I know that one of the things that we don't have, some of us may need to park our cars in town at an expense. And I observed today that probably 3/4 of the parking spaces over the winter at Tameron are empty. And it would seem that And I know it would have to take a board action, it may be more applicable to address this at the board meeting next week. But I just want to note that there is an in-kind method that we could get a little bit of a perk. It wouldn't cost the owners of Tamaron anything. And I think it would be a benefit to some of us that leave cars here and go back and forth and have a car in town. And often use it on board business. So that comment, we could talk about it next week.
I agree.
We'll talk about it at the board meeting.
I wanted to put it on.
Plant that seed. Thanks, Mark.
Okay.
But
Moving
yeah, I
on.
think probably 0 again this year, Joe.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all have money out of our own pockets. We know that. And we don't get reimbursed. We know that. Yeah.
Well, and thank you to the board members for doing that. I mean, it's expensive to be on the board this year.
Yeah.
And it will be next year too.
So
It's a big sacrifice. Thank you.
topics teed up.
Okay, auditing and consulting fees, nothing really to comment on here. This is a pretty straightforward thing and it's always on budget. Annual meeting, last year we were in a severe cost-cutting mode because of the huge insurance bill we were facing. So we budgeted next to nothing for the annual meeting, and I think there was discussion about trying to get sponsorships, and I think we got some help from a couple of close-in business associates. I think Edward Jones, John Mills kicked in something, and I think Sotheby's did. Both of them are joined at the hip with us.
And
But
Bobby did as well with his gifting of the food.
Yeah, and I was going to mention that, and the Cliffside Bar and Grill. Yeah.
Well, really, if it wasn't for Cliffside, it would have been a bust.
Yeah.
And that was good food too.
Yeah. So we ended up spending, with the administrative costs, the running the election and the mailings, the required mailings that go out for the annual meeting notice and so forth. We ended up spending about $2,600. In years past, we've spent $8,000 or $9,000 on it for the social events and golf tournament and so on and so forth. But so I plugged in 3,000 for 2025. Anybody has any further comment on that?
Along with what Greg and Bobby did and Sotheby's, Edward Jones, we also had an angel investor out there that I think prompted some discussion about what we do with this, with the owners meeting. So don't know what anybody else wants to do with this number. That owners meeting always used to be such a big deal, and I think it still can be, but no ideas what we do with the budgeted dollars, but just throwing it out there.
Like, what do you mean by an angel?
Well, we had someone that was willing to put up $3,000-4,000 just to pull this thing off out of their own pocket.
Thank you.
I think I know who that was. Okay.
I think we all do, Joe.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. Web services, these are basically I think I have a note here that, yeah. Yeah.
Hey,
it's our
Joe.
Zoom- it's our Zoom account,
Hey,
our
Joe.
GoDaddy account. It's the web, Wix is a web building, and then Carbonite, which is the backup for a computer data backup. And I think we've added Bookerville to that, and so that kicks up the budgeted cost. I heard, did somebody try to interrupt there just then? No?
Well, I'll interrupt. Back to the annual meeting. So are we saying that our total cash outlay was 2,661, and that is with the contributions by sponsors? So actually the cash outlay would have been more like 7,000. In other words, is that 3,000, considering that we're going to get the same level of sponsors this year? Is that what we're saying?
I'm just putting the numbers out there. Somebody else is going to have to answer that question.
Okay, because it seems to me if our total cost of that meeting is closer to 7,000 and we just happen to have some sponsors underwrite a few elements of the meeting, that we need to either we need to have people assigned to developing those sponsors so we are not in a fire drill mode like we were this year, or we need to put the total cost of the meeting up there. And if we get sponsorships that lower that cost, then all the better will come in ahead.
Stacy, can I mention something?
You sure can.
So here, because we're such a large community, we in the beginning used to always be able to afford having the events for McDowell Mountain, and it was all free for the owners. But because of rising inflation and costs, we've just started making it that if a person wants to attend, so we know how many people will attend, it helps. They have to spend a monetary value. It's usually like $10 a person or $15 a person at most. But then it kind of gives us an accounting so that we don't have food waste. We kind of know who's coming, and then we give tickets for it. And I don't know if you guys are game with that, but it just kind of makes it so that there's a little bit of help with the costs, as well as helping us plan on how many people are coming so that we know how much food we really need to have.
Cheryl, that's a great idea. Plus, if we can get started on that as early as possible, and we can, like you and I and Mark had talked about with sponsors, if we can get started on that right now, man, getting a head start there and getting a pretty decent head count, I think I'm 100% behind that.
Yeah, we need to develop this area, I think, Joe, and work on it during the year to, similarly to what Cheryl just said. But I think if the 2,661 would have been, say, 3,000 higher, were it not for our sponsorships, then we should show it at its actual cost of 7,000, and then, maybe budget some sponsorship revenue to offset that. But I'm concerned with the number being 3,000 if our actual cost is really going to be higher, unless we get sponsors.
I don't know where the 2,661 number came from. I think it was provided by Elisa.
Yeah, well,
And
we've
I
got,
don't know what the components are of that. There should be a ledger. I mean, perhaps Elisa can look at the ledger on account 532
yeah, we've got a
and see if it's
couple,
got pluses and minuses in it.
we do. Some of the money we're making is a little bit off the people who play golf. A couple $5, $10 on top of what Glacier charges us. And then the 2 sponsorships.
So Elisa, if you back
So
out,
the
if you-
expenses were 75.86. And
So
the income was 49.25.
okay, so there's the answer to your question, Stacy.
Okay.
So where are we at?
We should get the sponsorship effort a lot earlier.
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't like the presentation of that, just assuming we're gonna get sponsorships. I think we should show the full cost. Like what it would have been without the sponsors.
And in the end, if we get a bunch of sponsors, it's just like we talked previously, we have a positive and it's good news.
Yeah, but, okay, so this is the second time this has come up, you know, you budget it such that if you get the good news, then okay, it's great. But I can tell you, when we move down through here, you're gonna see that
This
the expected,
recorded.
so you're gonna see that the expected revenues we're going to get this year are gonna fall short of our total expenses by a fairly good amount. And I would rather deal in what the reality is that we expect in net revenue or expect in net cost than inflate this number, which raises the total expenses and has the potential for creating a increase or larger increase in association dues. I know this is a small amount, but if we do this same thing multiple times and it runs to the bottom line, we're going to be in a discussion next Saturday on where do we go back and cut things down because we don't want to raise dues that much.
Well, if we don't include it now, though, we'll have nothing to cut down. It won't become a topic of conversation.
I'm fine I'll put whatever number you guys suggest in there.
I mean, if we're looking at this from a cash basis, I guess that's okay. But I want to really have people working on that sponsorship because we're making assumptions there that that we need to nail down in order to have that number.
Right, and I think we dropped the ball right up until the end date where we didn't realize we only had $750 and we panicked. What the heck are we gonna do?
Yeah, we need to get that nailed down. And so that's okay, Joe. We can proceed.
So leave it at 3, or do you want to put it higher?
Oh, let's just throw caution into the wind and leave it at 3.
Okay.
I agree. I think we'll have better sponsorship, and if we do the minimal fee, that'll help offset it.
Well,
I agree.
Yeah, I'll comment on that minimal fee thing. You tell a bunch of these owners that it's going to cost them $5 or $10 to attend that that reception, you're gonna have less people coming, guaranteed.
I had put in the chat, Joe, we thought that here too, that it would limit the number of people. We do kids are free and the adults are only
Yeah.
the $10.
Well,
And we're not seeing a decline.
Well, I'm gonna comment on that. McDowell Mountain Ranch and Tamaron are 2 decidedly different demographics.
True, but we're getting a lot of new owners in there that have the money of McDowell Mountain Ranch. So it's kind of becoming that demographic.
Okay, all right.
Just something for us to discuss.
Yep. All right, okay, we talked about web services, commuters, copiers and office supplies. I know this ran under budget, but I left it at a number closer to, well, wait a minute, that number was somebody gave me that number, so there's where that is. What's my note over here? Oh, that's right. Last year we stopped the IT contract because we have Juwan now. Okay, any discussion on this one? Nope. Payroll processing, pretty standard stuff. Property taxes. Yeah, we with property values increasing, we thought we'd have had more property taxes, a greater property tax burden, but the number is the number. So we got a little bit of a break there.
Is that a phasing thing, Joe? Can we expect it to, catch up?
No, that's an annualized amount. I mean, you pay it. What do we pay the property taxes? We pay them in February and May, something like that. Yeah. And then the highway, this is the blue highway signs, the Tamaron signs going north and going south, coming towards the property. So there's that. So this, we budgeted, these amounts here. We spent this. So we're in a little bit better shape. We actually, because going back to the insurance, because our insurance renews in October, we get 2.5 months offset. So what we're budgeting for is an annualized amount. But while we budgeted 1.376 million last year, we actually will have spent 1.246 million this year because of our new USI insurance policies that are somewhat cheaper than what the RE Harris policies were. So that helped drive this number down from budget.
Oh.
Okay. I'm not gonna get into a great deal of discussion on personnel expenses. Stacy and I have been talking about this. There's going to be we think there's going to be some changes in all of these lines, most significantly in the hourly salaries, which at this point in time is only front desk staff. And our goal is to eliminate front desk staff altogether at some point. We can't do that yet because we have the alarm monitoring issue that we have to deal with. But the fully burdened staff cost of $358,634. We think we can do better than that. And that's going to require some executive session discussion next week after working this next week before the meeting. Stacy, do you have any comment on that?
No, we'll be working on this and have our plan is to have something to present in executive session next week before the budget's finalized.
Yep.
A lot of moving parts right now.
Yep.
Hold on, we'll lay down.
You talking to me? Can I tee up one thing, Joe, on 590? I think it's 590. One thing that we don't have, and we had last year and we didn't this year, is a general manager. And
you look at the line there. We budgeted 179,000, and that included Paige Coleman, who resigned. So we will have spent a whole lot less.
I suffice it to say, we've had issues this year that had there been a general manager, I don't think the issues would have arisen. And I think that it's something that we need to budget for. So we have the funds available next year to have that flexibility, because if we don't budget, we won't have that flexibility. I believe it's a big hole in our organization that we don't have a general manager. And I'll just tee that up for future discussion.
I have thoughts about that, but I'll withhold them. I think we need to discuss this next week individually, and then talk about it in an executive session next Saturday. Okay.
Yeah, I have under administrative expenses, one thing that we want to explore for 2025, I want to, if the other board members would like to, is affordable HOA software. The need for that is making itself apparent in several different areas. The one software that I watched a demo on has very extensive capability. You can pay your assessments or maintenance invoices in the app on your phone. and more people today do business on their phone. And have that expectation, not only that, but any communications would come through on your phone as well as your email. So people, time to move your car so the snowplow can come through. You get a text as well as an email. And it also lets everybody on the board reach owners. It just has multiple functionality. The one that I saw a demo of was extremely affordable. It was per unit, 83 cents per month per unit. So it's worth exploring this year. So I'm not sure where that drops in, but we're really getting to a point where it became apparent when the bears were climbing in windows at High Point and Gary wasn't available and Elisa had to drive up from home in order to send an email to owners. And that in this day and age, that communication system is pretty antiquated. So that's something that I think we need to talk about and have something on the books for next week.
I agree with you, Stacy, on that completely.
Yeah, me too.
So I did a
Same
quick,
here.
It
I
sounds
did-
like it's $5,000 or so max annually to stay on budget.
$3,800. I did the math real quick.
Yeah.
You said-
Would that
said
go
it-
in web services?
Well, it could, or you could create a separate line item.
Yeah.
How do you want to do that, Stacy? Do you want to just,
Yeah, let's do a separate line item. We could keep a closer eye on it since it's a new service. And just call it HOA software. And maybe 5,000.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that we don't know what we don't know about setup and consulting to get it set up, things like that.
So you think 7,000, Scott?
Well, I mean, Joe just said 3,800. I have to believe there's some kind of setup costs or something like that.
Yeah.
there's any software program, this is right in my bailiwick from when I was working, any software program you buy, you're going to have database entry, and that can cost as much or more than the software.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe for the first year we do 7,000, and then because that price that I was quoted was a year ago, and that's 70,000. Yeah, there you go. So and yeah, I would just like to make sure we start exploring that this year. I think it's really important.
I agree, Stacy.
You're gonna have probably training and everything else you have to have.
This outfit actually provided training
Free.
and yeah, so I they're the only ones I talked to, but I know they're not the only
So
show in
Field In.
town. Field In. Thanks,
Okay.
Joe, and everybody.
Okay. Okay, that takes us through revenues and administrative costs. So we'll go to operations. First line item, I had a quick email with Bobby this morning on this. Bobby, did you have a chance to look into this?
Yeah, a little bit. 612. We have no labor hours in 612. 612 is basically anything that we would do in common areas, HVAC, Guardian, pest control, doggy bags, Home Depot, common area purchase stuff.
Yeah.
We bought, I think a lot of that stuff we bought for the fire inspection. We needed some more exit signs and emergency lights. All that stuff went in there. And I'm not so, I think the repairs we did in 770 went in 612. Did they, Lisa?
Yeah, those are in 770. It was about
770.
21,000
Those are in where?
in 612 for the the
Oh,
repairs on 770.
70/70 is in 612. You got that, Joe?
So the materials, but not the
Yeah.
labor. Yeah,
Right,
so that was an anomaly. So that was an anomaly.
yeah.
So that pumped up the, this year's costs. So maybe this 65,000 budget is too high?
Are you saying that, did we say that's materials only and no labor?
Well,
Rock.
if there was contract labor, that would be in there, but I think BHP did all the work, didn't you, Bobby?
Well, I mean, we could keep that as is. However, keep in mind that we're, at some point, we're going to get this either written off or hopefully reimbursed as we continue to fight this 770. Because if that's 50, I mean, I like that 65 where we are.
How is 612 different from? Where's the other account? Different from 629?
That's 629 is labor.
But 612 has labor too?
Only outside contract labor, not BHP labor.
But it has the work on 770, which was BHP labor.
No, only the materials.
Is that right?
I don't know where it would have got separated. I mean, we turn the invoice in. I don't know if it all goes in 612. Lisa, does it? Or do you
Do you
divide it?
remember, all I have is the numbers. Do you remember what the cost was?
Let's put it this way. There should not be BHP labor in there. That account is only for materials and outside services. So if there's BHP labor in there, it shouldn't be.
We can talk to Jessica and find out how much of that was labor and what was cost. I mean, materials.
You guys want to dig into that during the week and
Yeah.
clear it up next week, next
Yeah,
Saturday,
Does that work, Bob?
or during the week?
Yeah.
Okay, then I'm just going to leave that where it is and leave it highlighted in yellow so that we can come back. We know we have to come back to it. Okay. Are we good there?
Yep.
Okay. 613 services billed to owners. This is where BHP provides a service, a work done inside an owner's unit, and then it gets back billed to the owners. We won't, again, like I referred to on the previous page, this line item, the revenue. This is the somewhat corresponding cost side to that, and this account will be deleted as well because we won't have BHP billing Taco for work done in an owner's unit, and then we have to turn around and put it on the owner's assessment account. I think I've got that right.
That's right, Joe. And BHP is going to be doing a communication to owners about that change. Yes.
Okay, cast iron drain waste vent replacements. This is an ongoing thing. We have to budget for it every year because as long as we have old cast iron drain piping, we're gonna have cracks and leaks, and we're gonna have to fix them. We budgeted 25K last year, or this year, I keep saying last year. We budgeted 25K in 2024, and we will have spent 16.6, so we can drop that number down. Hopefully the trend continues, though the older those pipes get, the more they break.
No, I would suggest just keeping it 25 because
Uh,
it's gonna happen sooner or later. And then
I-
I'd rather have a slush
I,
fund.
I'm sorry, I'm gonna disagree because every time you say put a more conservative number in there, it's pumping up our bottom line costs. And on Saturday, we're gonna end up pulling it back out again. Because we're gonna be looking at a significant increase in assessments.
Well, we can't count on our plumbing pipes to get in line with our assessments. I mean, if they crack, and we're gonna have to fix them, and they're only getting older.
Okay.
So
So
I,
even though we only spent under 17,000 in this year, you want to keep it at 25.
I do,
Yeah.
I think that having a budget that is based 100% on the very best case scenario is where we end up in trouble, and we need to allow for this to be a bigger number considering the age of the cast iron.
Well, this wasn't a best case scenario. This was actuals for 2024. I wouldn't call that a best case scenario. We don't know what the best case scenario is. Nothing breaks. I'll put it at 25.
Does anybody else have a thought on that? I mean, I'm only one person.
Just set ourselves up on such tight budgets without any contingency that, we set
Okay.
ours-
I want to show you something. I was going
Yes,
to get to
Stacy,
this later.
I'm with you on that.
I want to show you something. I was going to get to this a little bit later. And part of it, okay, here's the example. Next line. We got scared, forgive my French, shitless, because the previous year we spent what? Close to 300,000, 200 and some thousand on snow removal. So this year we went way beyond our, I don't want to call it a policy, the way we've been doing things, where we take the last 5 years and we average it out and make that our snow removal budget. But we went up because we thought, oh my gosh, what if we have another bad year like that? So we budgeted $175,100 for snow removal, and look at what we're going to spend. So
You know-
However, yeah,
we,
but
we over budgeted that by $100,000.
I know, but my,
Still, you know, we're not done yet. And then we also, and I'm curious with Bobby. So this year we implemented a new policy, and we limited the snow removal that the HOA did. Whereas last year when it was so high, now it was a record winter, but we also, anytime somebody called maintenance and said, come shovel my walk, they did. And that we didn't have a defined policy. And so this year we did implement a defined policy that the basic service provided by the HOA was much more limited than it had been in years past. So I think that made a difference. But it's also the quantity of snow. Did that make a difference, Bobby?
Yeah.
Does that?
It did. And, you know, when it comes to snow or cast iron, I mean, I don't want to say you put 80,000 in there, but I would rather be higher than lower, because if I go over budget, then I'm going to be sitting here and asking you to explain it, and I won't be able to. I mean, it is what it is. If it's 16, it's 16. If it's 40, it's 40. I mean, I don't
if
have.
it's 120, it's 120.
I can't answer that question next year.
And this goes back to us not having any money in reserves to play with. So without having money in reserves to play with, budgeting higher has got to be the option until reserves are back up.
And I'll just add one more dimension to that, is we don't have a contingency either. And, you know, absent a contingency and absent the reserves, we're setting ourselves up for a failure. The worst case is over budget this stuff.
I want to show you something. I want to show you guys something.
Can I just finish?
This was going to be later, but I'm going to come all the way down to the bottom line. Excessive revenues over expenses, right? we are on the plus side for 2024 by $96,000. So even though we didn't put a contingency in the budget, even though we budgeted what we budgeted, we're going to come out ahead in 2024. Miraculously. Miraculously. And I projected that at the end of 2024, we would have somewhere around $250,000 in our reserves. Anybody remember that?
Yeah.
I said it. I said it. Okay. Look where we're going to be on reserves at the end of the year.
I can't see it. How much is it? $4,800?
$485,000.
Well, then I just, me personally, I would much rather keep everything where it is and continue to build that budget up rather than start trying to nickel and dime, because then we're going to end up, in my opinion, right back where we were. And something big's going to happen.
Yeah.
And then here we go. So just, I would rather have a lot of, build up the reserves as much as we can in the board bylaws. And I don't know what those say, but that's just a new guy speaking.
All right, I'm gonna, I'll show you one more thing. And this is without, like I said, I put the same number for owner's assessments for 2025 as we had for 2024. And if we go to the bottom line again, that's how much we're going to have to raise assessments if this budget doesn't change.
It is what it is.
Okay. All right. I'll stop pushing back. Let's move on. So the cast iron replacements are at 25. What do you want to do with snow removal?
Anybody have a coin? It's just a guess. I think 100's fine.
I think 100 looks good.
Yeah, I like 100.
I mean, the weather people still don't know what snow we're gonna get this year. They keep bouncing back and forth. It could be really mild and we could be over budget, but who knows?
Well, look at this note. Look at this note right here. That's 5 years worth of snow removal costs. A low of 61,000, a high of 260. It's all over the map. You never know what you're gonna get. Life is like a box of chocolates.
No, it's anybody's guess, Joe.
I like that, Joe. I like your $100,000, Joe.
All right. Okay. Roof and ceiling repairs. Bobby advises that we've got about 6 more to do in 2025 through the division. The total cost there is $39K.
Is this where the asphalt drips through the cracks?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Grounds, we budgeted 129. We're going to spend 125. Do you want to kick this number up some?
Is there anything that we didn't do this year trying to save, but it's gonna have to be done next year?
Well,
I know we had,
when you talk about grounds, think about how much free labor we got from owners, especially
I'll say the pokers.
The cokers, yeah.
One of the problems that we had this past year, and we had a lot of complaints, was weed control.
Oh, weed, yeah, yeah.
So is that including 624? Is if you were to buy I'm just gonna say a sprayer and or if we were to bring in Scott's again, or something like that.
Let me, I had, Mark, I had conversations with Bobby's brother Ryan, and they bought that backpack sprayer and some weed killer to spray the weeds. That is not going to cut it for property wide, keep the weeds down. That's spot treatments only.
Yeah.
The
We
only
need
way
to
we're
bring
going to
Scott's back in.
Exactly. I'm with you, Cheryl. We need to bring Scott's back in.
And we should budget for the Scots and we just need to move forward with it.
Is that in
Hey.
624?
Let me just ask this silly question. Have we reached out to Glacier? I mean, they have all the equipment. They've got a maintenance facility right by our place. They're already spraying and doing a fabulous job on the course. What would it take for them to once a quarter spray our deal? If they were just a contract, if we were just a, because they already have all the chemicals and just charge us and be done,
Yeah, and
rather
it's
than
a-
getting Scots and all that.
It's a good question, Chad, for a technical reason. Over the past 2 years, they have really upped their game on broadleaf weed control because of thistle. And that's our weeds are broadleaf weeds.
Uh-huh.
But like you just said, they have the chemicals and they have the equipment. Question is, how would we approach them?
Yeah, we don't even know. I mean, they may be staffed to handle their stuff. I mean, would they want to do a contract work for us? I don't
Well,
know.
and it's, I mean, because you've already have I mean, it's nothing, it couldn't take more than 2 hours to spray all of our grounds with their units.
Well,
I mean, it's just something I'm just throwing out there. Or we go to Scott's and, I mean,
I think we've
same
got a
thing.
contractor that we know is
Perfect.
effective. We use them for years. And the only reason we
I'm
didn't
good
use
with
them
that.
last year was because an owner threatened to sue them. I think we go back to Scott's and Scott's Prolon and talk to them and see what they'll do.
Absolutely, because I mean, the grounds is what, I mean, in the summer, that's what's our part of the selling point of this whole place is keeping the grounds up.
And Bobby, check with Glacier on that, and then we can compare to what
Well,
we would get from Scott's.
Exactly right. You know, here's the thing. Today we're dropping numbers in to pay for things. We have time to discuss, so if we drop up and Scott's, it was about $8,000 if I remember right before, probably more now. And the question with Scott's is, will they say, sorry, we don't want to do that again? So we should look at a number of different options. Let's just drop $10,000 into the account for weed control. And we'll look at options down the road.
Okay, but let's make sure we're doing this in the right place. 624 is BHP grounds labor. If we're talking about Scott's, it needs to go up here.
Okay.
Would you put that note in this on the side, Joe, so that, well, I have to say it so that I remember where we put it?
So do you want to put another 10 grand in here?
Yeah, and then just make a note of that or a comment.
Scott's was 5,200.
5,200.
About 26 twice.
But that was 2 years ago. You can bet your life it'll be 25% more.
Like everybody else.
We need to look at our options.
Okay. Yeah. You like that? Everybody like that?
Yeah.
Good job, Joe. Thank you.
Okay. And what about the BHP labor on grounds?
Bobby, are you happy to raises?
This year was pretty tight. I mean, there's some things that I'd like to be, I mean, you could call it a wish list, I guess, the stuff that we'd like to be able to do around grounds, but
like what?
We've cut down quite a few trees this year. And a lot of that's to do over the years, the mowing around the base of the trees and the weed eating has taken a toll on the trees. I'd like to be able to put something around the trees, whether it's a piece of culvert, a piece of black culvert, anything to protect the base of that tree from getting damaged.
Gotcha. Keep getting hit.
Yeah, or we build something or, aesthetically around the trees. I don't know, but
Well, at my daughter's condo complex, which is like this a little bit, they spray a donut of Roundup around every tree. In the
Oh.
spring.
it's stuff like that. I mean, but
Well, I'm thinking.
Hey, Mark, if you know who gets wind that we're spraying Roundup on the property, you're really going to have insurrection.
Insurrection.
Joe was right.
I'm glad I wasn't on the board then.
So after a while, you just begin to take the punches. But, the other thing I'm thinking about is, and look at, this year you brought in, Selena, and she did a fabulous job. And is she getting paid enough so you're gonna keep her?
Yeah,
My only question.
that's a concern. I mean,
Eh,
right now, she's told us she's leaving in August, so.
She moved the needle in terms of appearance a lot.
Yeah, we saved a lot of money on that, because we paid Blooming's a lot of money the year before
And
and
didn't get shit.
didn't get shit.
Yeah, they did a bad job.
So,
Just to make sure the number is good. You did a good job last year. We know that they're going up all over the place. I want to just make sure that there's enough money in it for 2025. That's all.
And also, did you have enough money for the beds, the baskets,
if you're talking about the hanging pots,
hanging pots,
we bought flowers. We bought the cheapest ones we could find this year. I didn't hear any complaints, but
What she did in the beds looked great, Bobby. Those inexpensive flowers the way she placed them, they looked really good. But owners donated the baskets, isn't that correct, Stacy?
and at the lodge deck, owners donated those baskets.
What are they, about $35, $40 a piece or something? So maintenance materials, that's all up on the 70, that's all in, I lost the number, but the top line, baskets.
612.
Okay, that's all. Such a small.
So Ryan told Chad that the area outside of Chad's condo at High Point, I don't know if that's us or Glacier or a little bit of both, but that
it's mostly us.
it definitely needs to be cleaned out. And Chad, is this right? He wasn't sure what to do with that area and they were gonna figure it out for the.
Yeah.
25,
Well,
but-
it was two of them because they had the water pressure issue. So they dug it up and fixed that. That was Glacier. But then on the other one, it's just the from the roofs and just all the common area and the brush, and we're trying to do fire mitigation. So yeah, I just don't know who that is. And that'll be a spring. And that couldn't be that much.
What are we at? What's the budget now? 125?
For grounds,
Yeah.
119.
you're looking at it.
Which is the same.
And we spent 125, so we blew the budget by a little bit this year.
Shouldn't we bring it up to at least what we had for 2024, being that we know that we still need to do the same?
125.
125, 130, I think, to be safe. I know, Joe, you don't want to see that bottom line number increase, but
Hey, I've given up on that argument. I
Well,
lost that fight 2-3 times. I'm not gonna do it anymore.
Well, let's go ahead and do that. And I like 125, but then when we get to the bottom number, then we can go back and start cutting
exactly.
if we need to. So, I mean, I
And
would
we know
rather,
we've got some wiggle room where some stuff's going to reduce, Joe.
correct.
All hope's not lost.
We got you, Joe.
I'm
Look
just
at him.
I'm looking out for the owners. They took.
And
a
they
big hit.
appreciate that.
They
No, they
took a-
appreciate that.
They took a big 35% hit last year, and so far this year is looking like another 10%. So
But we don't want to do special assessments like we did last year. So that's why this budget is so important.
Yes. Hey,
Well-
look, I think after a 35%, they're going to be happy with a 10%.
okay. All right. What do you want this number to be?
Chad, now we know you're the new guy.
I think 125, Joe, is a good number just to kind of keep it.
Plumbing, common areas. We underspent. Maybe Bobby has some comments on that. I don't know.
Laterals under the box drains.
I mean, that covers anything in between the condo walls, the ceilings, common areas.
Are we getting to the point, we've replaced so many of these box drains, are they almost getting done?
I mean, there's a lot of them replaced, but there's still a lot of them to do, but we just hit them as they fail. I think I've got 2 or 3 that we've got to do right now that are on the list, but
When we were up at, High Point, Ryan found a set of cast iron that was failing. I don't know if he mentioned that to you.
yep.
Cast irons in a different line item. Don't forget that.
Well,
Can we leave that one where it's at, Bobby? Do you feel comfortable with the 16,000?
Yeah.
Okay. Joe, we
Uh,
didn't move a number.
Okay.
Well, I guess I have a question. Last spring, we got a bid from, name escapes me, to run cameras down the lines and
M&R.
assess.
That's
M&R.
cap. That'll be covered in capital.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And I can add some to that because Paul Brown is, I'll have to talk to him. We found some pretty good stuff when we went through that this summer. And I think it's an optimistic tone.
That's good.
Okay. So 625 stays where it is.
Yes,
Okay. HVAC common areas. Bobby was, I had discussion with Bobby on this and he believes that there's some heating units. I think, Bobby, you were saying they were in the elevator shafts.
Yeah, we've got three, basically furnaces that heat the lodge, three big units. Two of those three units are 82 models. I'm surprised the HVAC guy was pretty amazed that they're still running as good as they are. I mean, they are running, but I just want to be prepared if one of those happened to take a dump this year.
And that 7,000 is to replace one of them if we have to.
Yep.
Okay. I want to catch up here a second. Give me a. Okay, preventive maintenance. What is this? I want to make sure that this is not where, or is it where the owners get their furnace filters replaced? Is that, because that's inside the units. This line item should be preventive maintenance outside of units, in my opinion, but I may be wrong.
No, I agree, Joe. P&M is covered by owners and owners should be being direct billed in 2025 from Bobby.
Right.
Yeah, Bobby, I think this is just for the building.
So what are we, what kind of work is this inside, you know, in the building? What are we doing that is preventive maintenance for the building structures?
I'll have to give it to Jessica and get you a solid answer. I don't have it in front of me right now.
Yeah, I did get some feedback. I don't know, it was from you, Bobby, that some of these items, some items were charged to 629, which is the catch-all that we're going to get to in a couple of minutes here.
Okay.
So maybe we need to clean up this area and this area and figure out what's in there and what we have to budget for.
as I recall from last year. And that's your warning, as I'm trying to think back to a year ago off the top of my head. But I thought 627 was the owner PMs. And if that's the case, then that will be zero this year because owners will be filled directly.
PMs are currently in 613.
That's where they should be.
Yeah.
If this is a valid line item, then it should be preventive maintenance only on the building structures outside of the units. And I'm at a loss to figure out what kind of work we're doing that would be.
Well, that wouldn't be captured someplace else. Like that account almost seems like a redundancy.
Yeah. I'll find out.
All right, I'm gonna yellow line this whole thing.
Bobby, do you feel comfortable that Joe zeroes that out until we get a line item with real numbers to try and give us a better balance at the end?
Yeah.
So do you want me to zero it out at this point?
Stacy, are you comfortable with that, being that we think it's a redundancy?
Well, if it's a redundancy, then that means someplace else needs to get more money.
Well, I think
Well,
that-
no, we've talked about where else it would be placed, so it would be something that really would be a zero unless somebody comes up with what that preventative maintenance is.
yeah, and yeah, I'm comfortable with zeroing that out, but keep it highlighted while Bobby looks into that, and to make sure it's not something that we should have accounted for elsewhere. I really think, you know, to me, I look at this and I see a few overlaps that make it difficult to tell exactly what's covered by that area. So maybe we'll get a little better
Make
definition.
sure it's not in common areas.
And remember, this is the first year that we've ever broken out the maintenance. And so this is expected. We should have a few questions and we should have a little overlap. And that's just part of the process, then the second year to go and define it better.
Okay, I made a note on it and highlighted the whole line so we can make sure we come back to it. Okay. Administrative. Stacy, you want to cover this?
Sure. Bobby has offered to bill us at a flat rate. I know he spends more than 35 hours a week working at Tamaron. And so that's going to be very helpful to have the flat rate. I'm still want to visit with you about Jessica's hours because we're going to be, and these discussions are ongoing just because if they're going to be breaking off to bill owners directly, then some of that administrative time shouldn't be billed to Tamaron. It should be part of the bill to owner process. And as Cheryl knows, being a contractor, you have administrative fees in your fees, and it's all new. So we're still kind of finding our way. But that's where we are right now with both of those being a flat fee for Taco. Makes it a lot more controllable for us. So that's good.
Hey, Bobby, the question I had on this, and this is for Bobby, Stacy, and everybody. So it's 35 hours, the base rates that you came up with Stacy was the 35 and 30 for you and Jessica hours per week, but you guys don't work 52 weeks a year. Is it fair to calculate that at 50 weeks a year, considering you're going to be taking days off or a week's vacation or whatever you're going to be doing?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, so we'll factor that in, Joe. That's a really good conversation point to bring up and sort of fine tune this, I think.
Can I make a comment on just one thing here? Jessica's hours are pretty cut and dry, but I would like to say that I know for a fact that Bobby's up at that place more than 35 hours a week. So there's been some concessions there on Bobby giving us a reduced hourly on that, because if something happens, Bobby's up on property on Saturday and Sunday or late night if it's needed. I just want to make sure all the owners and everybody's
here
aware
right
that
now.
that time is, and that time is, it's really not true on his time.
Agreed.
To a flat rate agreement.
Which is salary.
So, yeah, that's what I was trying to say about Bobby's time. He definitely is giving Tamaron a lot more than 35 hours a week.
So, Stacy, you mentioned you still want to address Jessica's hours. Is that right?
Yeah, and what you just said about vacation, I'm not sure how to factor that in, but we'll discuss this and kind of fine tune it before the meeting next week.
Okay.
There's ways you could deal with that.
But that's, I mean, so I just want everybody to know what BHP is doing for us this year. Billing owners directly is relieving us of quite a bit of a administrative burden and a timing difference, because how we've always been is that we would pay for the owner work and then we'd assess for it the following quarter. So we'd have 3 to 6 month lag before we got the income back in. And they're also going to be buying materials for us instead of having Taco buy the materials to have on hand. They're really they've been in business with us now for, is it 1.5 years?
Almost 2 years.
Almost 2 years.
May will be 3.
And each year we fine tune this a little bit more. In 2024, the fine tuning was breaking everything out by area, and now we're fine tuning it a little bit more, and it's a very good partnership. So thank you, Bobby.
No, thank you, guys. We're trying to, we look at this as a partnership, not a contract or a customer. I mean, obviously it is, but we do other stuff in town, but we try and take care of Tamaron, obviously, far as much as we can. So we're willing to do whatever we can to make it better for you guys.
Okay, Joe.
All right, so miscellaneous building and property labor, this was not budgeted in 2024. Either we didn't consider or didn't think about all the little things that go on around the property. For example, I know Jessica compiled a very long list, and I have it, but I don't have it in front of me, of what went into this. And it's things like unlocking the owner storage every morning, locking it up at night, going around and opening up the dumpster doors so that the waste management trucks can get to the, and just things like that. Bobby probably can add to that list for everybody's information. But again, we never budgeted for it, and we ended up spending this much money. And I put the set, don't laugh at that number, but my opinion was that maybe some of these things could be placed elsewhere. They could be charged elsewhere. And we could whittle this number down. It's a catch-all. It's comments, ideas, thoughts.
I mean, it's like Stacy said, last year was our first stab at this, breaking all this out to, instead of having just one line. So this may fall into another thing like preventative maintenance. We're just going to have to look at it and see where it may be an overlap. I don't know. But
well, there's always going to be something we didn't plan for. Like, the one I keep throwing out there is turkeys flying through windows, because that just doesn't happen in Plano, Texas. And it's the one I remember, but it was happening a lot last year. So we have to be able to have an account for these unanticipated costs. But something that we're talking to Bobby about is having a level of board approval to use that account. So rather than it just being an ongoing operating account, if something is unanticipated and unbudgeted, we need to approve it. And what that will give us is some board discretion over the use of that account. Could something perhaps be deferred, or would it go someplace else in the budget? But it will also keep us informed, so we won't be surprised, at quarter financial time to say, wow, what was that? Because we'll know, because we'll have planned for it in advance. So for this account, we're working out an approval process.
But does it make sense to have spent almost 120 last year and only budget 75 this year?
I think so.
I do agree too, Stacy. That 75 is good.
Yeah, because Mark, I think that some of what went in there is going to be shuffled around, and we're taking we're kind of taking a fine-tuned look at that. So I'm good with 75,000 on that.
So is this kind of also like the catch-all? And if we budget at 75, one of these the ones that we've previously discussed, could actually fall into this bucket, if you will?
See, that's the thing. We
don't know what we don't know.
No, because this would be bare, like this is probably bare, like Bobby, wasn't the 117, that's probably some of the bare interactions that we've had to have people up on So it was, this year was just kind of a weird year. We didn't have turkeys or bears problems like we had last year. So that number's inflated for 2024, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so.
So that's
Okay.
why 75 is probably more realistic. Hopefully the bear finds a new home and we don't have any turkey issues. And that's just a catch-all for the balance of stuff. Dumpsters, opening up owners stuff that we have to fine tune and get that on track and make sure that that's all stays there. And it's not part of the normal property management that Bobby's doing.
And I want to say, and Bobby and I just talked about this yesterday evening, so it also needs to be decided this week with further discussion. But one thing we're considering, and Joe and Cheryl, I shared this with you guys, is do we need an after hours maintenance person here all the time? Or can that switch to on-call after hours? Because we have somebody on call. What are the times again, Bobby, that somebody is on call versus here?
So we have somebody here till 10 or 11 at night, every night.
And that's covered in this line item down here. 674. We'll
Okay.
get to that.
Okay, but all right, so I jumped the ball with that. We'll get to it when we get down there, Joe.
Okay. All right.
Because I thought some of what went into this miscellaneous, where is that 629 was from the guys who were here on the weekends. Is that right?
No, it shouldn't be. Well, I guess some of their labor could have been, but maybe Bobby can clarify this. The way I got it from Elisa is that this is all the hours for the night and weekend guys.
Okay, I thought janitorial was going up in 629.
No.
It was the night and weekend guys do janitorial work as a matter of, it's common. They do it.
Okay, so we're not putting janitorial in 629, or is 629 because I read somewhere that had janitorial, so maybe that was during the week janitorial versus night.
629 is just the stuff that they have to do that doesn't fit anywhere else. Packing down the garbage when it's overflowing.
Yeah.
I have a huge list. I don't know where it is right now, but Jessica created a list of all the different things that there's a lot of stuff going on here. And that's where we put it because we didn't have anywhere else.
Yeah, I went through that list, I think at the last board meeting. It's long. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things in there, like Lisa said, like, cleaning up. People leave stuff sitting at the dumpster because they're too lazy to put it in there, so the guys clean it up.
It's I forget how much the guys do. I sit here and I'm thinking of stuff, like you've got that list, Joe, but how many times a week, especially in the winter, is there a guy inside the dumpster, the recycle dumpster, taking trash out of it? Because they put trash in the recycle dumpster, so we have to physically get in there and separate it. I mean, where do you put that? Right?
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Oh, no, I agree. It needs to be put somewhere. I'm just trying to
Figure
out where
yeah.
it's gone and if that's where we want it to go for next year.
Yeah, but for the night 674 night and weekend, Jessica separates the guys that work on the night and weekend, and there's a bit of a breakdown on under there. Versus daytime stuff and nighttime stuff, and let's see, daily opening, night and weekend, and then just regular lodge cleaning and vacuuming and dusting and cleaning the laundry rooms, and this place gets dirty.
Somebody pukes down the trash chute off the third floor,
Yeah, or dog poop in the elevator.
Yeah, it happens
Yeah.
On the third floor?
all the way down.
Oh, my God.
All right, then, moving on, I think we agree for 75,000 and now it's on to window washing.
A second, I'm catching up here. Window washing, yeah. We didn't do it this year. We have it's scheduled for spring of 2025 and there's the number.
And our vendor has committed to getting us that service. Our vendor couldn't service us last year, so they've committed, right, Bobby?
Yep.
Yeah.
Good work,
on
guys.
their-
Thank you.
We're on their schedule for next year.
That's awesome.
We did
Okay.
that.
Okay, High Point exterior maintenance, that's gonna come in pretty much right on budget. Gamble Oak, same thing. Pine Cone, a little bit under budget, but we'll keep it at the same level. We gotta keep these buildings in good shape. And I'll skip down to Lodge, just to keep on the same thing. Apparently, we're deferring much of the Lodge work in 2024. What was the logic in that, Bobby?
Well, we use some of that for our work in High Point,
God, we have
the
to.
project.
What
For the
about,
exteriors, Bobby?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had some word from lodge owners who are very concerned about the carpet and they sent me pictures and it looked really bad. I know Bobby got some bids for carpet replacement using carpet squares, right, Bobby?
Yeah.
But it's a pretty big expense. Is there anything we can do to clean some of these stains off the large carpet or to get it better?
Where are they, Stacy?
I
In the
don't know,
hallways, or-
like, yeah, the hallways, the common areas in the hallways.
People spill shit during parties. and
Yes,
stuff.
I mean, we have a shampooer that we bought that's, just an over the counter thing.
Doesn't work.
It cleans it up for a little while, and then the soap stays in the carpet and it tracks the dirt. And,
Have we tried that? Something Bear, I've seen them do a lot of work.
well, we didn't do any carpet cleaning in the budget last year. We pulled it out.
We should go back to doing carpet cleaning. And when we use a professional carpet cleaner for commercial carpets, they end up using a stain resistant at the end so that it helps the dirt not track into the carpet. So us trying to do it ourselves, like Bobby said, we're leaving the soap in there. The soap is ending up causing more problems because we get more dirt tracked into it. If we get back and get some bids for commercial carpet cleaning and doing it at least once a quarter with the traffic we have in the lodge, I'd like to see what that number is versus putting all new carpet squares in, because that's going to be a pretty big undertaking.
Yeah,
See how long we can get it to last.
let's drop in some professional carpet cleaning. That's not exterior maintenance, but I don't know where that would go, but I agreed with the pictures I saw. It looked pretty bad.
It really needs to be cleaned for sure. That's a definite. And the vacuuming, I mean, you have to stay on that vacuuming, unfortunately, and at least having it done every 3 months for carpet cleaning. In all of our Cricket stores, I have commercial cleaners come in every quarter for my carpets.
And Bobby, just so we can get the number out there and I'll cringe, what was the bid for the carpet replacement? Because that, I think in the long-term asset plan, it came up in 2 years or so. 2
Yeah,
or 3 years.
about 3 years. It's right now it's at about 150,000.
Okay.
That's for all.
That's
of
the
them.
number I was kind of batting in my head.
Yeah, in that area.
You want that that would go in capital projects. Do you want that in this year's budget?
I don't think we can put it in this year's budget, Joe, but I think we have to talk about it or maybe make a note. I mean, Bobby extended the long-term asset replacement and he has that noted on the plan, but I just wanted everybody to be aware that that's coming. That's like the train that's in the tunnel. But this year we should get some bids for carpet cleaning and carpet stretching.
What do
Do we
think?
have some areas where the carpet has started to move, Bobby, that we do need to have it stretched?
Well, the installation that you have in the lodge is called a double stick. installation. So what that is the pad is glued to the concrete. The carpet is glued to the pad. There is no stretch in on this installation. So if you have bubbles in the area, it's because it's a high traffic thing. The dirt has got in between the pad and the carpet and it's broke down that adhesive. So that's, you can squeeze in some adhesive and some of that stuff, you know, over the years I've done that and
But
roll
you
it
can't
out.
stretch it, yeah.
Can't stretch it. So
Seems like it was 5,000, like 1,500 every 6 months in the past.
Black Bear.
yeah, I think we used Black Bear, didn't we, last couple years ago?
Yeah,
Bear's up here a lot.
so maybe 6,000,
For the carpet cleaning, 6,000?
yeah.
And a lot of times when you tell them you're not just doing it one-off and you say that you're doing it regular maintenance, they'll give you a break because they know they're coming back every quarter. So we might want to explore that as well.
Yeah, I can get some prices.
So we'll try to get that finalized for next week.
Exterior maintenance you need to keep in. One thing that this past year we ran into, you and I may have gone out there, is in the tower when we had that big rainstorm.
Yep.
Caulking on the windows.
Yep, that's one thing I've gotta get done next spring. That's gonna be a fun one.
It's gotta be done.
Yep.
You're gonna have to put some sort of sealer in there because
That's why I was the only one that was full. Yeah, we're gonna have to regrout, especially the bottom. You can walk out there and see if the ice gets in there and freezes, it's gonna pop them rocks.
Well,
out.
when we had one of those, I think it was in June, it just turned out to be a mess because of leakage around the windows.
One thing I've learned through our insurance work is how big and complicated and valuable our property is, and yet how old it is. And just like us humans, we take more maintenance after we turn 50. So I think we have to try to watch our costs, but we also have to take care of the property. And it just requires more. I'm looking at this and while there may be some areas we have to nail down and clarify that this is what happens when you're maintaining $100 million property. And
AC,
yes,
your volume just went way down for me. Did a microphone get moved or disconnected or something?
we just turned on the heater, so maybe it just got, I don't know, noisier.
No, now you're fine now.
I was just saying that, our property is 50 years old and it's really important we maintain it. It's a beautiful property. It's almost $100 million property, and that while we have a few things that we have to clarify, nail down, I don't see anything here that, is excess. Okay. So that's Lodge exterior maintenance. Is that a good budget for that's what we have exterior maintenance every year?
We've been budgeting the same amount, $100,000 split up among the 4 areas. That's what we've been budgeting ever since the exterior remodels were done.
Yeah, if that still works, then let's go.
Yep. All right, 640 fire sprinklers and extinguishers. We went over budget here, but that was mostly because of the air dialer project, because the UMA. This was because Ting had upgraded our digital phone system, and our old POTS lines wouldn't work anymore for dialing out emergencies like the elevator emergency line. So we had to put in this UMA system. So there's additional spending this year for that. And then we have a monthly cost for that subscription service. I think it's a couple $100 a month. So there's that. So I think the budget can stay back where it was normally. Anybody got anything to say about that?
I agree with you, Joe.
Okay. Elevator maintenance. This is our contract work with ThyssenKrupp. And I don't know who PEI is. Bobby, who's PEI?
I don't.
Professional elevator inspections.
Ah, the inspections. Okay. All right. So we spent a little bit more than our budget last year, so I upped the budget for next year, a few $100s over that. Communication system, interrupt me if you want. Communication systems maintenance. I talked to Bobby about this. He said the 30,000 number was good. You still good with that, Bobby?
Yeah.
All right. Temperature monitoring and alarms. The number of 35 was given to me by somebody. Bobby, you got any thoughts on that?
I think we can leave it where it's at.
I have a question about that. Is that just the equipment that supports those systems, or does that count for going in an owner's unit and when there's an alarm, because that should be billed to owner?
Yeah, that's billed to owners.
It is,
Yeah.
so this is just the HOA equipment that is supporting the temperature alarms.
Yeah, every unit has an iWorks module. Yeah.
But
But why is that number so high that those are there? Is that because some of them are gonna fail and we're looking at projection of replacing them? What's that? What
If we
consists of
replace them-
35,000?
This
if
is
we replace
maintenance.
them, it's billed to owners now.
Yeah,
Is that-
so,
Yeah, I don't know about that. That's an HOA system, that the temperature monitoring.
Oh, yeah, iWorks is HOA.
Yeah.
so then is that a projection if we have to replace? Like Stacy said, what's part of that 35,000? The system's already in place. Why are we spending $35,000 a year to manage the system? Is it a computer program that we pay money on? Is that a
Well, I
subscription?
know we had to buy a new controller down for Gamble Oak. Remember that, Gary?
Right.
What was that?
That was 13.
It was 13,000.
Something like that, yeah.
I remember talking.
Basically the brains of the system in Gamble Oak.
And it's labor, John's labor.
Juwan's labor, there's a lot of labor into the maintaining that.
I just want to make sure that if my alarm goes off, my iWorks alarm goes off, and the guys go and turn
to heat up.
my heat up so
Yeah.
that it doesn't go off, that's not falling in there, but that's getting billed to the owners.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
this
this
is
is-
just for the support structure around these systems. That was my.
I'm still trying to figure out what that support structure is. If we just did one unit for 13,000, let's say that labor's 5,000, so there's 18,000. We've just replaced one of the units. What's the projection for that 35? Are we looking at it that there might be failure in the other outlying complexes that we want to have that money budgeted? What is that?
Yeah, that's a lot.
There's more to it, and I'll look into it and get back to you by next week.
But I
And you
really
think
want,
that number's good? 35?
let's highlight that, because I just want to make sure we have a clean accounting of nothing's kind of sneaking in there that should have been billed to the owners.
Or that's over budgeted, because that would help Joe with getting his numbers down if we're over budgeted there.
And
Yeah.
Juwan can
Well,
help.
the reason it was budgeted at 47 was because we knew we were gonna have to replace the panel in Gamble Oak, and that was expensive. That's why went from 47 down to 35. We're not anticipating a panel replacement this year. Am I right on
Okay,
that?
I'd still like more clarity on that one.
Okay. I'm highlighting it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help you with your bottom number, Joe.
Appreciate it.
Trying.
Okay. Why am I getting messages?
Yeah.
I'm glad to see on the next one that we're going to do some fogged window replacements. I still don't have a list. I got a list from Gary, but Gary, the list I got was also people requesting new windows or something. It was, I wasn't clear on who was just fogged windows versus who was just window replacements. Do you have an aging of fogged window requests?
I don't have it. Look it out on that spreadsheet, but I can do that.
Yeah, could you do
Oh.
that for us so we know what we're looking at?
Is that large windows or is that the big sliders? What, you know, at that
This
price,
is
what is
all around the property.
the mix of them?
Yeah.
Gary, when you do that breakout for Stacy, where you do the fogged versus owners wanting to replace, replacing a window is on the owners, correct? Or does that fall into, if they want a new window, that comes to ARC for a replacement window?
Yeah,
Unless
that,
it's,
all of this is fogged windows or broken. None of
Okay.
it is just the owner request.
okay, just wanted to make sure nothing was crossing.
But there was something on the list that shoot, of course, the email's buried in 2,000 emails, but you know, it said not all of these are fogged windows or something. Yeah.
I don't remember saying that, but we have had requests from some owners where there is fogging on some windows and they want all the windows replaced. And
Okay,
I've said,
maybe that
we're
could have
not-
been
We're not
it.
gonna do that. We're just
Yeah.
gonna do that.
Okay, so let's get that list and start working toward that. And if you can age it at all, that would be helpful.
And this is limited to OEM windows. This is not windows that have been added on over the years as.
Correct. Now, it's becoming increasingly difficult to determine which ones are OEM and which ones have been replaced. You know, if there's an operable window in a unit, you know, Dave Dunn used to know pretty well which operable units were original and which were replaced, but we just don't have that historical information right now.
Well, I will brag on Cheryl and say that she is building a tracker for all work done on condos. So we are now establishing a record of.
We are, and the other thing to add to that is that we can have Bobby and I know that we can look at a window and we can tell if a window has been changed out or upgraded. A 50-year-old window is definitely going to look a lot different than a window that's been replaced by an owner themselves in the last 5 or 10 years.
You can come to my condo and see a 50-year-old window.
I have them at my place too.
We all do.
Okay.
So is this, I got this number of 12 windows via, I think it was via Bobby. And he probably got it from Gary. So are we good with that?
Yeah, I think that we talked about that replacing 10 windows. Gary?
Something like that. yeah.
Guessing at it, yeah.
Yeah, let's leave that, Joe, and then we could, revisit that next year if there's continued work.
I think this is something that this is a head of steam building, all this window replacements.
That's-
Okay, here we are with night weekend BHP staff. I'm sure there's going to be some active communication on this.
Well, Bobby was gonna go back and look at the work reported that's being done during that after hours. Because, the question is, how much of that is emergency versus how much of that is a luxury of having someone here that maybe we can't afford anymore. And then, that would also involve what constitutes an emergency. I asked my property manager when someone stays at a private home, like say they rent a cabin and their sink is dripping and they call maintenance or their toilet's running, and that would be great, next week we'll send somebody. If they call and say there's water gushing out of the water heater, they'd say, let me call my person on call and get them up there. But they said that most places do not have after hours full-time presence. And it just seems like if we have, so I think kind of that after hours shift, Bobby, is 3 to 10 or 11 on weekdays that someone's here, and then on weekends
Somebody's here from 8 AM to 10 or 11 PM.
from 8 AM to 10 or 11 PM. Could we move that to an on-call service instead of somebody being here the whole time?
The weekends.
Yeah, I think that we need to consider that.
And stopping maybe at 4 or 5 instead of, what is it now, 10 or 11 during the week?
And they're gonna be able to get all the. work
That
done.
makes it very difficult for everyone around here in the off hours. I gotta tell you, you might want to talk. to
I'm
them.
sorry, guys. This is at
Who's
workshops.
talking?
At workshops, owners are not supposed to comment, so I'm just gonna kind of tailor that right now. You will have a chance to discuss the budget in the board meeting next week before we approve it. But I think we have to consider this and to consider that Bobby's gonna go back and look at the calls that they get during this time. Are there a lot of emergencies that, you know, oh, thank God we had someone here versus could that have waited to somebody to drive to the property to handle? Could that be an on-call visit?
And
So-
isn't Bobby going to have, I mean, and this goes back to, it's not like Bobby isn't able to offer that service. If Bobby wants to have on-call emergency maintenance that he's charging directly to the owners for stuff that the owners would need, that would be a service that Bobby could offer, correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, if any of those calls are for owner maintenance, then they
And most,
bill to owner.
almost all of them would be, right? I mean, there could be emergencies that involve, you know, maybe somebody observes a drain line underneath the unit running out onto the ground. I mean, but most of this would be coverage for owner calls, wouldn't it?
That's why I'm thinking I mean, this is $85,000.
And if we
Yep.
bring it-
I'd love to see that gone, tell you the truth.
I see it being lower. I mean, if we direct bill owners like we're planning on and Bobby's got outside emergency service, the owners are still taken care of because they can still contact Bobby, but it's going to be out of their pocket. It's not going to be billed through us and then billed to them. So it's
And we
just saying the
also-
same thing.
We also have to remember the smoke alarms are being replaced, and that's a lot of what goes on, but we're getting rid of the old smoke alarms right now. So for 2025, the calls for smoke alarms, since almost all of them are false alarms, should be curtailed. So this is something I think that could be a really good change for the association's budget.
Hey, Bobby,
But
what's the timeline if somebody's on call and they get a call and it's something they need to get up and do? Is it an hour? How long does it take somebody to get up there? How far out are they?
It depends who's on call that week. I mean, we've got one guy that lives in High Point, which is nice.
Yeah.
that's really nice.
Otherwise, it's almost an hour, you know, but we're in the slow season now and it never fails. You know, these units sit empty. Christmas, Thanksgiving comes. People are using everything and we will get quite a few calls in the evening. Their toilet's not flushing or the toilet's plugged up. I got water coming through my shower ceiling because there is a cracked cast iron pipe that's getting used now. And we got to go in there and cut the ceiling out at night and, you know, or isolate the unit above, tell everybody not to use any water till the next morning. So, I mean, it does happen. So
The other question I had is, can we not maybe consider an occupancy based, on-staff person? Like, maybe over the course of the holidays, for example, or spring break, we have somebody there, but the rest of the time we don't.
Well, for sure. That was one thing, you know, Stacy and I were talking about. I would definitely suggest having somebody here, you know, when we're packed. Because if we got somebody on call, they're going to be coming up here all the time and the guys are going to get sick of that. But
Right.
It's once again, it's something we're talking about. I definitely wouldn't suggest doing it until the smoke alarm project's done and the locks are done. Because that's going to alleviate a lot of the stuff that we would have to deal with in the evenings, I hope.
This is, Bobby, remember, this is 2025. We're talking about, this is 1/1/25, not now.
And
Gotcha, yeah.
and
Yeah,
something,
so this wouldn't be till after January 1st and hopefully that stuff will be done.
yeah, and I just want to be the voice of reason here that all this stuff is requiring administrative changes for BHP. And so it's developing. right? These are conversations that we're having that we should be able to nail down a lot of before our budget meeting next week. But this is developing, and we have to give them opportunity to build out the structure for these changes within their own business. But I do think that we've got some room here to bring down our budget and make a change on how this is done.
And that'll be a big cost savings overall on
Big.
that bottom line that's inched up.
Because so Bobby, when you look at this with Jessica, what I also want to know when we're looking at what do those after hour calls go to? What are they for? Because how many of them are for things that are owner charged and not association charged? So that would even bring down that more. So if we're looking at having somebody here full time during spring break time, still a lot of those charges would be direct bill to owners and not to the association. So we really can bring this number down.
Agreed.
Okay. It's yellow highlighted, so we come back to it.
Agree here.
Any other comments on that, or can we move on?
We can move on, Joe.
Okay, maintenance and insurance on vehicles. We got noticed that Allstate is getting out. They're not going to insure commercial vehicles any longer, so we have to go out and get bids for insurance on the truck. So I bumped that up $1,000, expecting that because of that we're going to be paying a little more for insurance. So there's that.
Because it's insurance in Colorado. We've learned about that.
Texas.
Yeah.
Right on the bottom.
Yeah, it's true.
Fire mitigation around buildings. We all know how beneficial that is, and that's not something we want to cut corners on, right?
What's in that number, Bobby? Is that how much of that is outside services?
There's some of outside services in there, but any raking we do.
Raking's in there now.
Ratings in there.
Tree trimming, like I said, we cut a lot of trees down.
Well, that's you or that's outside?
Both.
Because I know that 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, we really did a lot. And
Underwoods.
things grow. And I've noted that like behind Fine Cone, it was gone from brush down to nothing, and now it's fuzzy again. Some of the stuff behind Gamble and along number 4 is starting to come back. Yeah, and it was a rainy summer, but it's come back in pretty full fury.
Yep.
So I just want to make it, I think we benefited from the fire mitigation, and I don't think we want to let up on it. So the question is there enough money to keep up with what we've already done?
And some of this, we can wrap into grounds, or it may overlap because there's stuff that we can do,
We've
this summer.
talked about that, getting an old mower and going up this high and keeping up with it.
I want to say to you that I've heard from Glacier and Rockwood that they're looking to partner with neighboring communities for fire mitigation, buying equipment and getting grants and that sort of thing. So I've had some initial email exchanges with them. It might help us here. But our insurance companies were very impressed with what we do for fire mitigation. So we have to keep it up.
Can I suggest that we may even want to get more focused on working with them and maybe even set up a committee to work with them? This is something that pays dividends.
It does. Okay.
I got two comments here. One is, and Mark, you probably are in a little bit intimate with this, even though you're on the other side of Gamble Oak. On the west side of Gamble Oak, you got all those Gamble Oaks that are right up close to the building. Should those be candidates for getting thinned out and, so they're not encroaching on the buildings on the back decks? I know when I play golf over there, I look at that and it's like, you can't even see the units for all the Gamble.
Isn't some of that glaciers though, Bobby?
What we did
and I know it because I did the legwork. We went and measured to the, and tied off, we ribboned off the property line when Underwood did it 2.5 years ago. And they did a good job clearing all the way back. And I'll say it again, it's just come back. We had a rainy summer and it's amazing how fast that brush came back. So is there enough money to maintain that? And that's where my question stops.
Well, Bobby said we do whatever Underwood says we need to do.
Right,
So,
right. And Underwood is, he thinks we do a good job and, you know, he's the go-to group.
And our
Underwood-
insurance person did too, so.
yay us.
The other comment
I
I've got
want to move
is,
on to bats.
yeah, well, stay on fire mitigation for a moment. The other comment I have is, if any of you know where I live in Pinecone, I've got about 15 large ponderosa pines that sit within 20 feet of my deck. There's 3 of them that are like, I can reach out and touch them almost. And I wouldn't mind having those gotten rid of, and I would be happy to help pay the cost of it personally. So just a thought.
We could just chat with Underwood and.
They'll be out in the spring.
But
Yeah.
I'm just budgeting purposes, is it worth just asking him?
Yeah.
And, you know, just expressing some of the concerns and making sure so that advice, fresh advice for next week.
Yep, I can try and get him up here this week. We can walk the property, do it earlier.
If you get them up there before I'm up there, Bobby, just take them by my building and you can see the 3 ponderosa pines that I'm talking about. They're right up next to the deck. And I wouldn't mind seeing those gone. And like I said, I'd like to know what it might cost to get rid of them. I know it won't be cheap, but I'd be willing to pay part of the cost to get rid of them.
Okay.
I think we've got a number of trees around property, Joe, that fall into that category.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I know there's a couple up in High Point where if the tree grows much more, it's going to be pressing up against the deck. Yeah. Okay. Bat mitigation. I was informed that we're starting to see more bat infestation and we're going to need to get back on top of this.
Hey, Bobby, is that number for him coming and doing screening to alleviate where we're seeing the bats coming in? Just trying to figure out the cost of that.
But not this number here?
Yeah, is that just him coming up for service when we see them, or is that going to be mitigation so that he's able to put up whatever type of barrier to try and keep the bats from wherever they're coming in? Or is that going to be something BHP would address after he gets rid of the bats?
BHP is gonna try and keep it in-house and seal stuff up. I mean, he came up and gave us a bid of just over 20,000.
So what
So,
do we do? What do we do for bat mitigation?
well, right now, we don't have any issue going on, per se. But if we see an area that gets to be a hotbed, we can get in there and seal it off, as best we can. And this guy he's really expensive.
So I saw a note up top saying Gamble needed some bat mitigation. That was a surprise. What's going on up at Gamble? I haven't seen a bat and I live there all summer.
In the very south end of Gamble, we had an area where they had got in behind the siding. And we had to take it off and re-side it, re-insulate it.
Do they cause damage?
Yeah.
So this is enough for what you have planned for the lodge? Okay.
And then I added a line, for the lodge carpet cleaning.
Thank you, Joe.
Right, so that, let me make sure that's covering that. Yeah, okay.
Is that, I'm sorry, is that, did we do one carpet cleaning or was that quarterly carpet cleaning?
I think that was 2, or maybe it was quarterly. I don't know. Somebody put the number 6,000 and I put it in there. I don't know how many that covers.
We're hoping that's quarterly.
Okay,
Okay.
So,
okay.
All right, so utilities would be next. Does anybody else need a bathroom break? Hello?
Yeah, let's take a quick break.
yeah.
Okay, I only need about 3 minutes, but the rest of you probably need 10. let's reconvene at 10:30
Pass it
or
on.
no, 10:25, 10:25.
Okay,
All right.
Yeah. And. Oh, no, that's okay.
I know, but I
Yeah.
didn't.
That's all I was trying to. And then Sharon. Yeah.
Trying to turn on the text.
Scott's back.
Okay.
Okay, let's go, Joe.
Okay, so we're on utilities. Everything looks good here. No bad news, good news. We expect to be under budget quite a bit on water and sewer, although I know we watered a lot of landscape watering this year, but then we had some periods of time when the water was turned off, so maybe we saved some money there. The best news is that Elder Creek Water Company informed us that there'd be no increase in water rates for 2025. So looking at exactly what we spent for this year, if we can expect that our water usage will be about the same, we can reduce the budget down to 397.
Did we save much money during this really rainy summer on sprinklers? Like, did we turn off our sprinklers?
Yeah, we were on and off.
Yeah, the landscape crew's pretty good about trying to shut the water off. I know some of our sprinklers have rain smarts. I'd like to see all of our sprinkler controllers have rain smarts. I have that here at my house, and when it rains, it shuts off automatically, and you don't have to go manually shut it off. But
This is my question on that. Then it was last summer, I would hear from people about the rain, but I don't know statistically if it was a heavier rain summer than normal.
The early part of the summer was definitely heavier. Yeah.
If we have an average summer, do we expect our water usage to go up? I mean, can
I
we
think
keep on the same number?
you know, I don't think it would be considerably. Bobby, you want to weigh in on that?
We cut off a couple of times this summer for a week here and a week there, and then we quit in early September once we had that heavy rain.
Yep.
And usually we go to October, right?
Yeah.
Well, in October, we shut it down in October. I think we shut it down about what?
I
About
think
the 10th, we shut it down pretty early in October this year, didn't we, Bobby?
First week in October this year, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, if you want to kick that up a little bit, I don't know.
we'll work with that. That's fine.
Okay. Everything else is pretty cut and dried. Electricity, it's always a moving target. We'll spend a little bit less. I think I looked it up. LPEA had a 4% rate increase last year. I went online and I could not see where they were announcing any rate increase for 2025, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do.
Is that what Eric talked about in the owners meeting, that he encouraged everyone to vote on the new LPEA board because if it went one direction, there were big rate increases being anticipated? Do we know anything about that?
Well, it isn't going to happen this year. I mean, the LPEA's plan, they gave 2 years notice, like, I don't know, 6-8 months ago, to Tri-States Generation up near Steamboat, which is where we get a majority of our power from. It's a coal-fired plant. And the LPA board is populated mostly with people who have green energy tendencies, and so they voted to stop buying power from Tri-States, and they're going to get power from wherever they're going to get it, more green sources. I know Eric Tibbetts and I have talked about this extensively, and we're concerned that in the not near future that we're going to see some significant increases because of this. The guy that Eric and I voted for, who was running against the incumbent, did not get elected. He was more of a traditionalist. The guy that's in there is more of a progressive, and so it'll be what it'll be, but it's not going to affect us this year. There may be a marginal increase this year, but I don't think anything more than that.
Okay.
Joe, out of curiosity, did we see any big change with the hot edge during the winter?
I think I don't have I'd have to go looking for the tracking sheet. Elisa, maybe you have it. The added cost, what I don't remember what it was. Was
Don't
it
worry.
I think 15,000, maybe something like that, 20,000.
It wasn't huge.
What'd you say, Mark?
So that's my recollection, is 15,000.
Yeah. And so then that's in the numbers you see.
Okay.
So I recommend that we budget 185 unless somebody hears, you guys are there local, Gary, Elisa, well, you're in Mexico, but anybody that's there local, if you hear anything during the week that LPEA is going to increase rates for 25, we can factor that in.
Well, I think we'd get a notice as owners or as customers that there's going to be a rate increase, and I've seen nothing.
I haven't seen anything yet. I know their communication has been stepped up, and I think that's because a lot of their customers across I mean, they serve Bayfield and I think they might even serve Pagosa Springs.
Joe, I get their monthly newsletter and there's been nothing in the monthly newsletter about it.
Yeah, and they've had some town halls. I know after the election, I think they were responding to people who wanted to know what's going on, like, how are you going to replace that coal-fired electricity with, wind and solar and whatever else. So, but I haven't heard anything.
Monthly, it goes, when the hot edge is on, it's about 4,500. And when it's off, it's about 1,200 a month.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad.
They turned, I think, Bobby, I think we turned it on in November. Have you turned it on yet?
No,
No.
nope.
I think we turned it on last year sometime in November and we turned it off in early April.
Well, you gave it a test run, right? And then had to clean the gutters,
Yep.
which probably went into that other maintenance area.
Probably. Yeah, we turned it on this year and had to have electricians come out and do a little work in the junction box out front, and then got up on the roof and we blew the gutters out, all the pine needles. So
So that's probably the maintenance it will require.
oh yeah.
That may have been one of those.
Okay. All right, Joe, what's next?
So capital projects. Hey, back to, somebody there, hey, Gary, could you check with Waste Management and see if they're gonna increase rates for 25?
Yeah, I can check, but I can almost guarantee that they will.
It's just a question of how much, right?
I thought you said that's the number you got, Gary, but
I'm sorry, what'd you say, Lisa?
I thought that was the number you got. I thought you already called them.
No, I haven't spoken with them because Janie Kimball is no longer there.
Okay.
But they've had an 8% rate increase virtually every year.
Well, I mean, I got it at 36. I think if there's a rate increase of 8%, we probably ought to bump that up a little bit. So maybe you could find out during the week.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Capital projects. So we did the Lodge parking lot this year. Is it High Point for 2025, Bobby?
Exactly what the record.
And I think that's the bid, right? The estimate?
Yes.
Yep. Question.
Yeah,
I know we got a freebie in Pine Cone last year because it wasn't done right the time before, but that got torn up like you wouldn't believe during the roofing installation. Is there any chance that we can get Leader to come out and, I mean, we've got chunks of tar like raising above raising above the surface of the asphalt where that big forklift was doing, tight turns and stuff like that, and their trucks and everything else. Is there any thought to doing something about that?
Yeah, I talked to Matt. He's gonna come out and take a look at it and see what he can do.
Okay, all right. All right, S-Deck replacements, support replacements, I'm sorry. We did 11 in 2024. We only planned for 8, and Bobby tells me there's about 10 more in 2025 that need to be done. So that's that. I got this number from Bobby, so it's pretty solid. Outside spiral stairs, rust abatement. We budgeted for this, but we deferred it because it's not a structural issue. I talked to Bobby about it, and we could defer it again if we want to. Discussion.
Tell you what, it's right before your eyes.
So it's not structural, but it's just a visual.
No, it's cancer into the steel. Eventually it will become structural unless we get ahead of it.
Yeah, we gotta do it sometime.
Now, some of them are worse than others.
Virginia's
is awesome. Virginia's gonna be structural sooner and later with the salt she puts on it.
So is that a patchwork repair? Like
Right.
there's just the spots you reinforce, or What do
No,
you
no, what
do?
you do is you needle scale or something like that,
Yeah.
the old rust out, you put an extend type of rust, that freezes the rust and then just repaint.
Yeah.
So
I saw an
current,
owner, I saw an owner down in the southeast end of Gamble Oak doing it himself at some point over in the summer. He had a paintbrush and a can of paint. I don't know what he was putting on there, but he was doing it himself. It's the unit just north of Pat Mears' place.
so what I want to make sure of is we don't have any potential liability issues here. We're sure it's not structural right now. And through the winter,
I don't believe it is.
okay,
I don't believe it is, but again, I'm sensitive to corrosion repair because having operations along the coast, you do it now or you pay a lot later. To replace these, if it becomes structural, what does it cost for a replacement spiral? 10 grand?
Probably.
Well, isn't this, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't this the vertical, the thin, what are they, half-inch, vertical pieces that go between the top of the railing and the bottom, and they get water in them, and the water freezes, and it expands, and it creates cracks in them, and then they rust. Is that what we're talking about? I know that was an issue a long time ago.
This is general structural corrosion. Stacy, if you want to go down, I'll show you some of them later on today.
yeah. I mean, my question's been answered. If it's not a structural problem right now, and Bobby and Mark, who's the one who noticed them, think that it's fine to defer, we can defer.
I've got a spiral staircase on my deck. It's not mine. It goes up to the unit next door to me. And I see no issue there at all. So
A lot of it is the ice melt people are using too, as
Yeah.
Bobby and I know.
no, I don't think anybody uses ice melt on these stairs because nobody ever uses the stairs.
That's why yours looks so good. Yeah.
Yep, this is
But if it, if it was mine at the test, if it was mine at home, I'd do the preventive maintenance.
I have a question. If it's only $6,500, can't we just like maybe spread out something over 2 years and knock it out?
I thought Bobby had it spread out into a plan when we looked at Virginia's.
Yeah, I don't think 6,500 is going to cover all of them.
No,
Well, I had that feeling too, but I mean, it would seem like if we find that we might, come in under budget in some areas next summer, that, we could start looking at doing, at least the worst ones.
Yep.
It really falls into the same philosophies like $25,000 annual maintenance. We could go without painting, but we don't.
Yeah. Exactly. I put 3,500 in there. We'll do a couple of them next summer.
When you say do them, what does that mean?
We're gonna have to grind off the rust, the exposed areas, and put the rust inhibitor back in there and then repaint them.
So this is extending the life of the metal that's there. This isn't replacing listed metal. Okay.
Right.
That sounds good then.
All right. The Lodge Building Engineer Study, this was something that was recommended by our former R.E. Harris broker. It never got done. USI didn't need it, so it's a non-issue, goes away. Fire suppression, pump controllers, High Point. Bobby tells me those are done and we need one in the lodge and it's $3,500.
Yeah, the lodge is the last one left to do. That's gonna be the biggest one.
Yeah.
It's gonna cost a lot more, but you guys figured out how to build it for us.
And again, this is not replacing the pump. This is pulling the pump out and this is replacing it with a rebuilt pump. So it's a lot cheaper than a brand new pump. Lodge sewer project, everybody knows what that is. It wasn't budgeted. We spent $328,500 on it. Hopefully we're done with that. Unplanned capital expenses. We had a lot of that this year. We typically budget 25,000 for this, but we have the smoke detector project. So you can see what that is. We have the door lock project. See what that is. These obviously won't be repeated, but they're things that are happening this year. So rotted beam replacements. And then the fire alarm system upgrade. We cemented this project. I keep getting these notices. I thought I shut that off. We cemented that project in the winter, January, February this year. And we paid a $50,000 upfront payment to Durango Electric. So that was really unbudgeted, but it's part of that. It's part of the project that is here, the fire alarm systems upgrade, which is a 4-year contractual commitment with Durango Electric. And our 2025 but our 2025 cost to Durango Electric is $199,000. What I need to know is, and Bobby, this is for you, are there going to be any internal taco costs for this?
For 2025?
Yeah, for next year. Now, this isn't the smoke detectors. This is the new panels, and this is for the flow tamper alarms and making those completely remote reporting. So we don't have to have somebody on the alarm panel.
I'm sure there will be some in-house costs for that. I just don't know what they are.
What they're gonna do this coming year is the panels in High Point, but they're gonna be doing the dirt work property wide. Is that? You know, trenching and that sort of thing.
So yeah, if they're gonna be doing trenching and stuff in between the buildings, I mean, there's obviously gonna be some grounds work we're gonna need to do. There's gonna be, I'm sure Juwan's gonna have some stuff involved in getting them phone lines.
We might want to make sure that the parking lot work is done after that and not before. So
Yeah.
maybe we can talk, that'll be something to highlight yellow, Joe, and we can get a better number this week.
Okay. Yeah, good point on well, the parking lot's going to get torn up in Gamble Oak because of the roof.
They would not have to trench any asphalt with what they're doing.
Yeah, it's all in the grass areas between the buildings.
Is any of that parking lot tear up because from the roof? Is any of that higher grounds responsibility? I mean, they had terms in their contract about.
I think it was a bad decision. I think it was a bad decision to do that parking lot resurfacing in the spring, knowing that we had the roof project coming, because that asphalt doesn't cure in a couple of days. You can drive on it, but
Heavy machinery is going to tear it up as it did. And Bobby, I mean, trying to go back to them because they had to bring in the equipment that they did. That's kind of one of those things, like Joe's saying, we should have done it after the fact, not before, while that was fresh asphalt.
it should have been done in the fall rather than the spring. Yeah.
Or not done at all.
Or waited a year. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's time to warm it up. The sun didn't set up and it never did cure right.
Well, we won't have to worry about roofs for another 50 years. That'll be someone else's problem.
Somebody else's problem.
Here to that.
None of us will be here.
All right, Bobby, think about this. Think about this guy over the course of the week and see what you can come up with.
Okay.
All right. It got suggested that we have 6 ice machines on the property, and they're becoming a maintenance issue. Some of them are pretty old. Replacing them costs $12,300 each. There's the one in Pinecone is probably going to need replacement pretty soon. Question is, we're not a hotel. We're not a You know where I'm going with this. Do we really need ice machines? Everybody
I
makes ice-
think we don't. That's my opinion.
Me
Mine
too,
too.
Cheryl.
Mine too.
Is there anybody who doesn't have the ability to
Make
either
ice?
make or store ice, like buy a bag of ice and put it in a cooler or something? I just think that, and I'm thinking of my experience as a renter, because I use Airbnb, and we just solution that. If there's not ice, John will go buy a styrofoam cooler and a bag of ice, and it's just done. So I don't think that that's a good use of our money.
I just think whenever they go out, and we don't replace.
That's my thinking.
And what?
Here, here. I second that
Replace
motion.
or replace or repair.
Yeah, we
Right.
just let them die now.
Yeah.
Is there one in all the clusters?
There's one in each. There's one in each of the 3 clusters, and there's 3 in the lodge, I think.
Yeah, I can see having them in the lodge, but I mean, shit, I didn't even knew there was one in Gamble. So,
And I know this is this is like an absolute out of the box thing, but you know, they do have ice machines that are charged. Maybe one of our vendors wants to come in and replace the ice machines for one that charges for the ice for anybody that wants it. Have we thought about that?
Good idea. That'd be like
Okay, yeah.
that'd be like the washing machines and dryers and the vending and the soda
machine.
machines.
Yes,
Yeah.
then we don't own them. They make money off of them, and then everybody's still happy and they're able to get the ice.
Oh,
Who can look
Good
Who
at
wants
idea.
to who wants to run that down?
If you guys give me who our local vendor is for the current stuff, I can reach out to them and see if they have that or have a partner that does it. Gary, I'll ask you to do that for me if you just send me their contact stuff.
Yeah, what is this for? I was talking to Bobby. For ice?
Yeah, for pay-as-you-go ice machines.
Even if.
Okay, we just
bad
We
guys
just
people
stopped
wanted to see bad
using
guys.
Pepsi, we're using Coke for the drink machines, and Amy Rapp has the candy
route.
machines here in the lodge. I think there's only 1 or 2 of them.
Yeah, if you send me both their information, then I can see if either one of them, Coke probably has ice machine that they can replace them and then they can start charging, but I'll talk to them and bring it back to the board.
Okay.
Thanks, Cheryl.
That's a great idea, Cheryl. Take it off us. Yep. So I'm going to delete this line. I think we're in agreement that we don't need to do this. Okay. Deck repairs in Pine Cone and Gamble Oak. Bobby, this is the back decks, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And did you give me that number? 12K? Is that
Yep.
okay?
Do I have any in here?
Is there any other deck stuff that we need to look at? I think either you or Ryan, I think it was you. We were down at my place last summer and you said we need to get under and look at that. That's sagging too much.
Yep.
I've heard other people say their decks are sagging. Do we need to do a?
Mine was.
I think
I
I
fixed it.
Bobby,
I
you've
think
been
that's
addressing and bringing them up as you see them, right?
Yep.
So that's,
That's
we,
what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, sewer line survey for outlying complexes. I know Mark's done a lot of work on this, so I'll let him speak to it.
let's leave the number in there for now, Joe. I'll talk to Paul. And see if he's talked to Alex at Albert. They may be able to give us everything that we need as part of their regular work with us, just, you know, and the number would be 0. But I'll have more on that next week.
Fair enough.
Just as a general statement, we have looked at it hard this summer, Paul and I did. The good news is High Point appears to be all plastic underground. Pine Cone is cast except for that north and east complex has been replaced. And Gamble is all cast, but the little bit of work that Albert did cameraing it, and Albert has cameras. They said the pipes look good. And this is
Nothing like the issues we had at the lodge then.
no, it doesn't, it doesn't appear, but it may be that we can get them to do a little bit of work for us. They come in and they do preventive maintenance in the larger line every year. And the ask is gonna be, can you give a little bit of service to us as well, as because we spend so much money with it. But they've got the capacity.
When you say they've done, they do service on the larger line, you mean the water company's line, the main?
They do their lines, they pressure wash their lines and maintain them every year. And they work around ours. So, and for example, there's a mystery on this, on the north, the south and the west side of Gamble that we had, because there's no surface expression of a manhole. They went in with cameras into our lines from the south and worked north, and they found a manhole. It's there. There's just no surface expression of that manhole. We think a sidewalk was poured on top of it. But in doing that, they said, you know, your cast iron looked really good. We didn't see any problems. So they have, and they've offered to allow us to use their camera equipment at no charge. So let me talk to them a little more. It would be good if maybe they could wash our pipes in Gamble maybe 1 year, wash our pipes at Pine Cone 1 year, something. We'll talk with Alex about the art of the possible. And Paul is working on a report. I'll push him, lean on him a little bit to get that out. He's done some great maps that document what we've got. It really, he's an amazing guy.
All right, then. So if we look at the bottom line numbers, this is everything tallied up. Our deltas, if you will, we expect to be in the black by perhaps $96,000 in 2024. And with everything we've tallied up, if we leave leaving the assessments, owner's assessments exactly where they were last year, we'd have a deficit of 338,212. So that would become the gross dollar increase in assessments for 2025. I haven't calculated.
What would that be per unit if we?
I don't have that. And I can get that and I can email it to everybody. I'd have to go.
That's still just a working number.
Yeah, just a guesstimate. What do you think?
Well,
10% of our budget.
Per unit, I can't. I'd have to pull out the calculation worksheet and put in the numbers.
Oh yeah, but no, just looking at it, though, it looks like it's maybe 10%.
It's about 10%.
Well,
Yeah, it's about
roughly
10%.
You divide it by 379 units. So, and then divide it into quarters, and
it's not a linear. It's not
because it's based on square footage. So
yeah,
it's based on the old calculation formula, which, but it's around 10%. Just go that way.
Yeah. Let's look at reserves.
Okay, so reserves. Here's the good news. Like I said before, with everything that was going on earlier in the year, I calculated that we'd draw down reserves down to the $250,000 level or so. It now looks like we will have about 480,000 in reserves at year end. So really
That's excellent.
Really good news there.
Yes.
And I talked to, and Elisa and I went over some of this. Our cash flow situation right now is pretty good. So I don't expect that we'll have to pull anything more out of reserves. I think there might be, wait a minute, let's back up. Elisa, aren't there some dollars that are allocated to the roof in here?
What I was thinking.
Might have to recant all that.
Last payment is March of 2025.
Right. We need to take a look at the accounting on the roof. And I know we had some money in reserves that's allocated towards the roof. So that number is probably going to go down.
Yeah, and that's the money that people who paid all up front, right? That we
Some of it, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. And we don't we don't have any more payments due to higher ground until April. So we're static on that until April.
Hey,
So
Joe,
that money-
we at our highest point with reserves was about 800 grand.
800, yeah, it was about 850,000 was our highest point.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah. So I know yeah, I spoke too soon. So I know there's some money in our reserves, and I'll in the next couple of days, I'll go and figure that out. And next week I'll have a better number for you. But I know we decided, Stacy, you remember this. We did the calculation and we decided to take some of that money and put it in the federal funds account with Edward Jones, so we could make some interest on it instead of it sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah, so I think what I'd like to see is a, add to this a projection of any reserves earmarked toward the final roof payment or,
Right.
I think our cash flow is handling the insurance payments because it's part of budget, but
Yeah,
I think
we got
just
that.
just be the roof payment that, that we have to make sure we've considered here.
Yep, I'll figure that out and I'll have that information for y'all next week.
Yeah, okay, great.
So Joe, in years past, we talked about taking money into reserves to meet the state requirements and then taking that out of reserves. Have we accommodated all of that in this budget?
No,
No.
we have not. The only money we have going into reserves is what you see here.
So is that a problem?
It's not a problem. The only place it's a problem is and Scott can attest to this, it's meeting the Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac minimums. They want you to contribute 10% of your annual budget to reserve. That for us at this point, that would be $300,000 or thereabouts.
And in the past, we were able to do that, put it in and take it out.
Well, we did it with smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, we were never at 10%. We were close, but I mean, with the insurance doing what it did, getting to 10% is going to be tough.
Yeah, that's what killed us trying to do that, was how much we had to pay for insurance in 2024. And we earmarked nothing for reserves in 2024 except these incremental amounts that I've highlighted.
And Joe, I just want to point out that I think the areas where we might be choosing to be more conservative in our approach than really strict in our approach with the budget is what's going to allow us to maybe not have that $142,000 draw from reserves next year. I think that's what we're trying to avoid, is having to dip into reserves for places where we under budgeted. And so
No,
I think that
again, look back at what happened in 2024. We're going to be 96,000 in the black. So we admittedly, that's mostly savings and snow removal, but
hey, I'll take it
But
whatever.
still, I was gonna
But,
say,
but I'm-
last year's budget meeting, we never, after the insurance rate hike, I don't think any of us, Joe, thought we'd be in the black this year. So that's
Yeah, that's
commendable to everybody.
Yeah. What was I going to say? Lost my thought.
now, how come we're averaging 700 per unit sold on capital contribution from sale? I thought is that the
That's an old.
Well,
number.
we only had, how many units sold this year?
22 or 23, Joe.
Yeah, I've actually got 24, but yeah. So yeah,
what is that capital I mean, how is that calculated?
2 months. It's 2 months. It's
Okay.
2 months base
Yeah.
HOA fees. Yeah,
Now I remember. Sorry.
yeah. So we said assume 25, and we're right about there, so. Yeah,
Okay. Well, any questions? Any more discussion? We've got our highlights. Are you going to,
I will save this, and I will send this, Stacy, to you and to Elisa in Excel format. So if you want to play with it, you can. Everybody else, I don't like multiple versions of this thing floating around. So I'll have Elisa put this in a PDF format and send it to everybody else.
yeah, why don't you date it? So we know
Yeah.
version
It'll I created this version for today, so it's version 4. We've gone through draft, version 1, version 2, version 2A, version 3. So
I
And
have
Joe,
like
you can lock that, so only you can make any changes to it if you send it out.
what's that again?
You can lock it so that nobody can make any edits except for you if you send it out.
I guess, can you do that in Excel?
Uh-huh.
People might want to edit their own copy, though. You know, the important thing will be that if we make edits,
Shows.
it's sent back to.
I just don't want multiple changed versions of it floating around in cyberspace. That's all. So I'll let me see what I can do on that.
If you need to protect it, Joe, I can teach you how.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever done, well, actually, I did do that on the owner's directory that's on the website, but that was eons ago.
Yeah, you'll have to think of a password and don't make it password.
All right.
Okay. Anybody else have something? Thanks, everybody who attended. We'll work hard to finalize this week, next week, same time, Saturday morning is our board meeting. And
All right.
I think
I
that's,
will see everybody then. Talk to everybody during the week. Y'all have a great day.
thanks,
Yep.
everybody. You too.
I'll see-
Bye.